Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Nightmare Narratives. I can picture some of you already in bed, maybe some of you just getting home from work. Wherever you are, whatever time it is, I'm glad you're here. If this helps you relax or sleep, please like and subscribe. It means a lot. Now let's get you comfortable, and I'll tell you tonight's story. My name is Vincent Calloway, and I've been a park ranger for 11 years. I'm telling you this because what happened to me in August of 1986 is the reason Wisconsin's Nicolet National Forest has a 50-square-mile section marked as Wolf Research Area. No public access. There's no wolf research happening there. There hasn't been since that summer. They just needed an excuse to keep people out after what I saw. Before I tell you the rest, you need to understand something about me. I don't believe in monsters. I never did. I was an army tracker before this job, spent 2 tours in places where the real monsters were human beings with guns. When I came home and became a ranger, I thought I'd seen everything nature could throw at me. Wolves, bears, mountain lions. I knew their signs, their habits, their kills. I'd tracked them all. So when people talked about the Michigan Dogman legends, I laughed it off. Just bears walking on their back legs, I'd say. Shadows playing tricks. People seeing what they wanted to see. I was so damn sure of myself. It was the second week of August when my supervisor called me into his office. 12 cattle had been killed on farms along the forest border. The farmers were angry, scared, and demanding answers. My supervisor wanted me to handle it. Probably wolves, he said, but the kills are strange. Take Dempsey with you, and that new biologist, Whitmore. Make it official. Harold Dempsey was 56 years old and counting down the days to retirement. 53 days left, to be exact. He reminded me every morning. Harold had been a ranger longer than I'd been alive. He knew these woods better than anyone. Dr. Ellen Whitmore was 29 and fresh out of graduate school. She studied wolf behavior and was excited to finally do field work. Too excited, maybe. She had that academic eagerness that made her blind to danger. We drove out to the nearest farm that afternoon. The heat was brutal, even for August. But when we stepped out of the truck, the air felt wrong, too cold, too still. The farmer, an older man named Tom Peterson, led us to his pasture. Lost 3 head this week, he said. Whatever got them, it wasn't normal. He was right. The first cow was sprawled in the grass, 50 yards from the fence. Its spine had been severed cleanly, like someone had taken an axe to it. But there were no tool marks, just teeth marks, big ones. Ellen knelt beside it, pulling on latex gloves. The bite radius suggests canine, she said, but the jaw pressure... She looked up at me. This would require a wolf 3 times normal size. Grizzly? Harold suggested. Not in Wisconsin, I said. Not for 100 years. The organs had been removed, not torn out, removed, carefully, surgically almost. And the tracks around the body made my skin crawl. They were canine. Wolf prints, definitely. But the spacing was wrong. They were too far apart, like whatever made them had been walking upright. And in some places, the prints showed all the weight on the back legs, just like a human walking. This is impossible, Ellen whispered. She was photographing the tracks with shaking hands. We found 2 more kills that day. Same thing. Spines severed. Organs gone. Those awful tracks leading back into the forest. Harold wanted to call it in and let someone else handle it. But I was curious now. Curious and angry. Something was killing livestock on my watch, in my forest, and I was going to find it. We headed into the woods the next morning with 3 days of supplies and a radio that barely worked. The signal was always bad in the Thunder Lake Valley. The mountains blocked everything. The forest felt different as soon as we crossed the tree line. Quieter. No birds singing, no squirrels chattering, just silence and that strange cold that didn't belong in August. I don't like this, Harold said. 33 years I've been doing this job. Never felt anything like this. Ellen was examining the ground. The tracks lead north, toward the old fire tower. I knew the tower. It had been abandoned since the 1960s. The stairs were rusted and dangerous. Nobody went up there anymore. We followed the trail for 6 hours. The tracks were fresh, probably from the night before, and they were getting stranger. In some places, they showed 4 legs, in others, just 2, like the thing kept switching back and forth. "What kind of animal does that?" Ellen asked. "None that I know of," I said. We found the first real kill site around noon. An elk, a big bull, probably 800 pounds. It had been dragged 300 yards up a slope so steep I had to use my hands to climb it. Whatever had moved that elk had strength that shouldn't exist. The kill was fresh, maybe 2 hours old. Blood was still dripping from the carcass. Harold checked his rifle. "It's still close." Ellen was staring at something on the ground. "Guys, you need to see this." The tracks near the elk were perfect, clear as day in the soft dirt. And they were wrong in every possible way. The front part was a wolf's paw, big one, maybe 6 inches across. But the back part stretched out like a human foot, 12 inches long. The weight distribution showed it had been standing on 2 legs when it killed the elk. "This is impossible," Ellen said again. Her voice was higher now, scared. "This can't be real." But it was real. I could see it, touch it, measure it. "We should go back," Harold said. "This is above our pay grade." "We're 2 days from the truck," I said. "And whatever this thing is, it's killing livestock. We need to at least figure out what we're dealing with." That was my first mistake. We reached the fire tower an hour before sunset. The tower stood in a small clearing, its metal frame red with rust. The stairs looked like they'd collapse if you breathed on them. But the tracks led right to the base. The end disappeared. "It climbed?" Ellen asked. We circled the tower, no tracks leading away. Whatever had come here was either still inside or had left by climbing down the other side. Harold shined his flashlight through the broken door at the base. Jesus Christ. The ground floor was filled with bones, dozens of elk skeletons picked completely clean. They were arranged in patterns, circles within circles, all facing the center of the room. "This is a feeding site," Ellen said. She stepped inside carefully, avoiding the bones. "But why arrange them?" The walls were covered in scratches, deep gouges in the metal, 4 parallel lines each. Claw marks. They went from floor to ceiling. Some of the marks formed shapes, letters. Harold moved closer with his light. "Those are German words." I felt cold, colder than I'd felt all day. "There was a POW camp near here," Harold said. "During World War II. German prisoners. Most got sent back after the war, but..." He trailed off. "But what?" I asked. "Story goes that a few escaped, vanished into the forest. They figured the men died of exposure or starvation. Never found bodies." Ellen was climbing the stairs despite the rust. "There's something up here." "Ellen, those stairs aren't safe," I called. She ignored me. The stairs groaned under her weight but held. She disappeared onto the second level. Harold and I waited, listening to her footsteps above us. Then we heard her gasp. "Vincent! Harold! Get up here!" We climbed carefully. The second floor was smaller, just a platform with windows looking out over the forest. In the corner was a pile of old blankets and what looked like a journal. Ellen was reading it, her flashlight shaking in her hand. "It's a diary," she said, "from 1945. A German POW named Klaus Volker. He escaped the camp and hid here." I took the journal from her. The handwriting was small and cramped. The early entry. Eyes talked about escape, about hiding, about hunger. Then they got strange. July 15th, 1945. I am so hungry. I ate the last of the supplies 3 days ago. I tried to eat bark and roots, but I'm getting weaker. I see wolves in the forest. Big ones. They watch me. July 20th, 1945. I found a dead deer today. Something had killed it. I ate the raw meat. I had no choice. It tasted good. Too good. July 28th, 1945. The wolves come closer now. I'm not afraid of them anymore. I feel different. Stronger. My hands hurt. My jaw hurts. August 3rd, 1945. I understand now. The hunger isn't weakness. It's a gift. The wolves knew. They were showing me. Tonight is the full moon. I will accept what I'm becoming. The last entry was dated August 4th, 1945. It wasn't the moon that changed me. It was the choice. The choice to become a predator instead of prey. The hunger never stops now. But I'm not weak anymore. I'll never be weak again. This is crazy, Ellen said. This guy went insane from starvation. Maybe, Harold said. But he didn't sound convinced. I looked out the window. The sun was setting. The forest was turning dark. We should make camp, I said. We'll radio for pickup in the morning. We set up our tents in the clearing. Harold tried the radio, but there was too much interference. Just static and distant voices that didn't sound quite right. Ellen cooked dinner on our portable stove. We ate in silence, all of us thinking about that journal. It's just a crazy man's writings, Ellen said finally. People starve, they hallucinate. They write things that don't make sense. Then what killed those cattle? Harold asked. What made those tracks? Nobody had an answer. We took shifts on watch. Harold first, then me, then Ellen. I tried to sleep, but couldn't. Every sound in the forest made me jump. Around midnight, I heard howling. But it wasn't normal wolf howling. It was wrong. The pitch was off, too deep and too high at the same time. And underneath the howl, I swear I heard words, like someone was trying to talk and howl at the same time. Harold was sitting by, the fire, his rifle across his lap. You hear that? He whispered. Yeah. That's not a wolf. I know. The howling circled us, sometimes close, sometimes far. It went on for an hour, then stopped. The silence after was worse than the howling. I took over the watch at 2 a.m. Harold crawled into his tent. Ellen was already asleep in hers. I sat by the fire feeding it logs, watching the darkness between the trees. My rifle was loaded and ready. At 3:30 I heard Ellen scream. I grabbed my rifle and ran to her tent. Ellen, what's wrong? Something touched my tent, something big. I circled her tent with my flashlight. There were tracks in the dirt, fresh tracks, the same impossible tracks we'd been following. They came right up to her tent, circled it twice, then walked away. On two legs. Harold emerged from his tent with his rifle. What happened? Something was here, I said. It circled Ellen's tent. Oh, God, Ellen whispered. She was still in her sleeping bag, too scared to come out. It was sniffing. I heard it sniffing the tent fabric. We kept watch together after that, all three of us. Nobody was sleeping now. The sun finally rose around 6. We packed up fast, not talking, just wanting to get moving. We're leaving, Harold said. I don't care about the investigation. This is wrong. But Ellen wasn't in her tent. I called her name. No answer. Her sleeping bag was there. Her boots were there. But Ellen was gone. We found the blood trail 20 feet from camp. It led into the forest, toward a ravine. Drops of blood on leaves, on rocks. And those tracks. Those goddamn tracks walking on two legs, with smaller human footprints beside them. Ellen's footprints. But her boots were still at camp. She'd been barefoot. Ellen! I shouted. Ellen, where are you? Help me! Her voice came from the ravine. Vincent! Harold, help me! We ran toward her voice. The ravine was steep and rocky. We climbed down carefully, following Ellen's voice and the blood trail. I'm hurt, she called. Please hurry. We're coming, Harold shouted. We found her, body wedged between two large rocks at the bottom. Her throat had been torn out. She'd been dead for hours. The blood was dry. Rigor mortis had already set in, but we'd heard her voice 30 seconds ago. Harold and I looked at each other. That wasn't her, he whispered. Help me, Ellen's voice called again from deeper in the ravine. Please, it hurts. Oh, Jesus, Harold said. Oh, Jesus Christ. We climbed back up as fast as we could. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely hold on to the rocks. Something howled behind us, close. So close I could feel the vibration in my chest. When we reached the top, Harold immediately got on the radio. "Base, this is Thunder Lake Patrol. We have an emergency. Officer down, repeat, officer down. We need immediate extraction." Static. "Base, do you copy? We need help." More static. Then a voice came through, a woman's voice. "Help me! Vincent! Harold, it hurts!" Ellen's voice, coming from the radio. Harold threw it on the ground. We ran back to camp, grabbed our essential gear, and started moving. We didn't know where we were going, just away. The forest felt alive now, watching. Every shadow seemed to move. Every sound made us spin around with our rifles ready. "What is that thing?" Harold asked. "I don't know, but it's smart. It's playing with us." We walked for 3 hours trying to put distance between us and that ravine. The terrain was rough, lots of deadfall and thick underbrush, slow going. Around noon, Harold stopped. "Someone's been following us." "I know. I can feel it too." We never saw it, but we could hear it. Branches breaking, leaves rustling, always just out of sight, keeping pace with us. When we stopped, it stopped. When we moved, it moved. "It's hunting us," Harold said. We reached a small stream and stopped to refill our water bottles. I knelt down by the water, and that's when I saw them, tracks in the mud on the opposite bank. Big tracks, the impossible tracks. They were fresh, minutes old. It had crossed ahead of us, cut us off. "Harold," I said quietly, "don't move." "What?" "It's here. Right now. It's close." We slowly raised our rifles and scanned the trees. Nothing. Just forest. Then I heard breathing. Heavy breathing. Right behind us. I turned. Nothing there. But I could smell it. Wet fur and blood and something else. Something like rot. "Run," Harold said. "What?" "Run!" We ran. I don't know how long. My lungs were burning. My legs felt like rubber. Behind us, something crashed through the brush. Something big. Something fast. Harold fired his rifle without looking back. Once, twice, 3 times. The crashing stopped. We kept running until we couldn't anymore. We collapsed in a small clearing, gasping for air. "Did you hit it?" I asked. "I don't know. I didn't see it." How can something that big be that hard to see? We rested for 10 minutes, then kept moving. We were heading east now toward the old POW camp ruins. It was still a full day's hike, but it was the only landmark I could think of. Maybe we could find shelter there. Maybe we could find something to help us understand what we were dealing with. The sun was setting when we found the fire tower again. "That's impossible," Harold said. "We've been walking away from it all day." But there it was. The same tower. The same clearing. "It herded us back here," I said. "Why?" "I don't know." We had no choice. It would be dark soon. We went inside the tower base. Harold barricaded the door with bones from the feeding site. I kept watch at the broken windows. My rifle was loaded, but I wasn't sure it would matter. "This thing killed Ellen without us hearing anything," Harold said. "It can mimic voices. It tracked us all day without showing itself. How do we fight something like that?" "I don't know. I've got 53 days until retirement, Vincent. 53 days. I was going to buy an RV, drive to Alaska, see my daughter in Anchorage." "You'll make it, Harold." "Will I?" Neither of us slept that night. We sat back to back in the center of the room, rifles pointing at the windows and door. The howling started around midnight, circling the tower. Sometimes it sounded like a wolf. Sometimes it sounded like Ellen screaming. Sometimes it sounded like my fiancée Rebecca calling my name. "Vincent! Vincent, where are you? I'm scared!" Rebecca's voice. Perfect. Like she was standing right outside. "It's not her," Harold said. "Don't listen." "Vincent, please, help me." I closed my eyes, covered my ears, but I could still hear her. At 3 a.m., the howling stopped. Harold stood up to stretch his legs. "I'm going to check the perimeter. Stay here. I'll be 2 minutes, just around the outside of the tower." "Harold, don't." But he was already moving toward the door. He pushed aside the bones we'd used as a barricade. I heard him walk outside, heard his boots on the gravel, heard him circle around to the back of the tower. Then silence. "Harold?" I called. "Harold? You okay?" No answer. I grabbed my flashlight and went outside. The clearing was empty. No sign of Harold. His boot prints were clear in the dirt. They went around the side of the tower, then just stopped, mid-step, like he'd vanished into thin air. But there were other prints. The big tracks. They came from the forest, merged with Harold's prints, then went straight up the side of the tower, up the metal wall, like whatever made them had climbed vertically. I aimed my flashlight up the tower. In the beam, I saw blood. Drops of blood on the metal, going up and up. I climbed the stairs. They were even more rusted now, groaning with every step. I was sure they'd collapse, but I had to know. The second floor was empty, but the blood continued up to the third floor, the observation deck. I climbed higher. On the observation deck, I found Harold, or pieces of him. His body had been torn in half at the waist. One half was placed in the northeast corner, the other half in the southwest corner, perfectly positioned, deliberately arranged. And between them, carved into the wooden floorboards with claws, were words, "Hunt or be hunted." I threw up over the railing. When I could breathe again, I went back down. I didn't know what else to do. I was alone now. No partner, no radio, no hope of rescue for 3 more days. I had to survive 3 days with that thing out there. Or I had to kill it. The journal, Klaus Volker's journal. Maybe there was something in it I'd missed. I went back to the second floor and grabbed it. I read through the whole thing again by flashlight. Most of it was the same crazy ramblings. But on the last page, there was something I hadn't seen before. Writing so small I'd missed it the first time. "The curse can be broken. Silver through the brain. But it must be silver from before my birth. Old silver. Cursed silver. My knife. They took my knife when they captured me. The camp commander kept it. Said it was evidence. I never saw it again. Silver knife. From before 1900, if Klaus was born around then. The POW camp. Maybe it was still there. I had a chance. Small. Nearly impossible. But a chance. I gathered my gear and left the tower. I couldn't stay there with Harold's body. I couldn't look at what had been done to him. The POW camp was 20 miles east, through rough terrain, in darkness, with that thing hunting me. I started walking. I made it maybe 5 miles before I had to rest. My legs were shaking from exhaustion. I'd been running on adrenaline for 36 hours. I found a small cave and crawled inside. It was barely big enough for me to sit up in, but it had only one entrance. I could defend it. I set up my flashlight pointing at the entrance and held my rifle ready. I must have dozed off because I woke to the sound of something moving outside. My flashlight was still on. The battery was getting weak, but I could see the cave entrance. A shadow passed by. Big shadow. Then another. Then it stopped moving. I could see it now. Just at the edge of my light, standing upright on 2 legs, it was massive, 8 feet tall at least, covered in dark fur. The head was wrong, wolf-like but too large, too elongated. The mouth had too many teeth. But the worst part was the eyes. Yellow eyes that caught my flashlight beam. Human eyes. Intelligent eyes. It tilted its head, studying me. Then it spoke. Vincent Calloway. The voice came from that wolf mouth, a man's voice, German accent. Army tracker, 11 years as ranger, engaged to Rebecca Martinez. She teaches 3rd grade in Green Bay. You were going to marry her next summer. My blood turned to ice. How do you know that? I've been watching you for 3 days. Longer, actually. I knew you'd be coming before you even got the call about the dead cattle. Klaus Volker, the thing that used to be a man, smiled. Somehow, A wolf's face smiled. You read my journal. Good. Then you know what I am, what I've become. You're a monster. Yes, but I wasn't always. It sat down at the cave entrance. Casual, like we were having a friendly conversation. I was a soldier, just like you. I didn't want to fight in Hitler's war, but you don't get a choice when men with guns tell you what to do. You killed my friends. I did. I'm sorry about that, truly. But I needed you alone. The woman would have complicated things. And the old man, he was too close to the end anyway. What do you want? Klaus tilted his head again. I want you to kill me. I stared at him. I've been alive for 82 years, he continued. 41 of them as this. I'm tired, Vincent. So tired. I tried to stop killing. For 15 years, I only ate animals. But then I tasted human again, and he paused. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter. It's like remembering who you really are. The hunger is everything. It never stops. Even when you hate yourself. Even when you're so disgusted by what you've done that you want to die. So die. Walk into the sun. Jump off a cliff. I've tried everything. Bullets don't work. Fire doesn't work. I heal from anything. The curse won't let me go. He leaned closer. But silver might work. Old silver. My grandmother's knife. The one they took from me. Why do you need me? Because I don't know where it is. The camp records were lost, and because... He paused. Because I need to know if I can still be killed, if there's still hope for me. And if I can't kill you? His yellow eyes glinted. Then I'll know I'm truly immortal. And I'll stop pretending to have humanity left. I'll go to Green Bay. I'll visit your fiancée at 435 Oakmont Street. She drives a blue Chevrolet. She likes to jog at sunset. She smells like vanilla perfume. I raised my rifle, fired 3 times, center mass. Klaus didn't even flinch. The bullets hit him. I saw the impacts, but they didn't penetrate. They just stopped, like hitting a wall. Bullets forged after 1800 don't hurt me, he said. I learned that the hard way decades ago. He stood up. His body seemed to shift, grow larger. His fur darkened until it was almost black. When he smiled, I could see straight down his throat. You have until tomorrow night, he said. Find the knife. Kill me, or I go to Green Bay. Then he was gone, just vanished into the darkness. I didn't sleep. I packed my gear and started moving again, east, toward the camp ruins. I walked through the night. My feet were bleeding in my boots. My water was gone. I didn't care. I had to find that knife. The sun was rising when I finally reached the campsite. It was just foundations now, concrete slabs where barracks used to be. Everything else had been torn down or rotted away. But there was still a fence, rusted chain link, mostly fallen over, and beyond that, a small concrete structure half buried in this hillside, a bunker, storage probably. The door was rusted shut. I had to kick it 6 times before it broke open. Inside was exactly what I'd hoped for. Filing cabinets, storage boxes, archives. I dug through everything. Old uniforms, rusted tools, documents so water damaged they fell apart when I touched them. Then I found it. A locked metal box labeled Evidence, Prisoner Effects, Volker K. I smashed the lock with a rock and opened it. Inside was a knife, old, tarnished silver. The handle was worn smooth from use. The blade was 8 inches long. I picked it up. It felt heavy, wrong, like it was made of something more than metal. You found it. I spun around. Klaus was standing in the bunker doorway. In the morning light, I could see him clearly for the first time. He really was 8 feet tall. His body was muscular but wrong, proportioned like a human but covered in fur. His hands had opposable thumbs but ended in claws. He could probably use tools, open doors, write words. He was looking at the knife with something like longing. That's it, he said. My grandmother gave it to me when I turned 16. She was from the old country, Romania. She said the knife had been in our family for 300 years, said it was blessed by a priest to kill evil. Ironic, I said. Very. He stepped into the bunker. Now comes the hard part. You have to stab me through the brain, and I have to let you get close enough to do it. Why would you fight back if you want to die? Because the wolf doesn't want to die. Only the man does. And when you get close, his eyes darkened. The wolf might win. He was right. The moment I stepped toward him, everything changed. Klaus's body shifted. His spine arched. His jaw opened impossibly wide. The humanity in his eyes vanished, replaced by pure hunger. He lunged. I dove to the side. His claws tore through the wall where I'd been standing. Concrete crumbled like paper. I slashed with the knife, caught his arm. Klaus screamed. The wound burned, smoke rising from it, real damage. But it didn't slow him down. He backhanded me. I flew across the bunker and hit the filing cabinets. Stars exploded in my vision. Klaus was on me before I could recover. His weight pinned me down. His jaws opened above my throat. The wolf wins, he growled. I still had the knife. I thrust it upward with both hands. The blade went under his jaw, through the soft tissue, into his brain. Klaus convulsed. His body rippled, shifting between forms. Man, wolf, something in between. He made sounds I hope I never hear again. Then he collapsed on top of me. I pushed him off, crawled away. Klaus was lying on his back, the knife still in his head. His body was changing. The fur was falling out. The muscles were withering. He was aging rapidly, 41 years of decay catching up in seconds. His yellow eyes found mine. There was humanity in them again. Relief. He whispered something in German. I don't speak German, but I understood the tone. Thank you. Then he crumbled. His body turned to dust and bones like it had been dead for decades, which I guess it had been. They found me 4 days later. I'd managed to walk back to where we'd left the truck, but I'd collapsed about a mile short. Dehydration, exhaustion, exposure. I woke up in a hospital in Green Bay. Rebecca was there holding my hand. She cried when I opened my eyes. I told them the official story. Rogue wolf pack. Ellen and Harold were killed. I'd gotten separated trying to track the animals. Wildlife Services would handle the cleanup. They found Ellen's and Harold's bodies. They didn't ask too many questions about the state they were in. Animal attacks are brutal. They never found Klaus's remains. When they searched the bunker, there was nothing there, just dust and old records. But I kept the knife. I quit the Forest Service 3 months later. Couldn't do it anymore. Couldn't walk in those woods knowing what was out there. Rebecca broke off the engagement a month after that. She said I'd changed, that I looked at people differently now, like I was calculating whether I could take them down if I had to. She wasn't wrong. I started researching. The POW camp in Wisconsin had held 132 German prisoners. When the war ended, 120 were accounted for. 12 escaped. 8 were never found. There are wolf research areas in national forests across the northern United States. Montana, Minnesota, Michigan, Maine. Each one was closed to the public around the same time frame. 1947, 1955, 1963, 1978. Different years, different forests, same pattern. I found Klaus's journal again. I'd kept it without telling anyone. There was one more entry I hadn't read to Harold and Ellen. It was on the inside back cover, written so small I'd missed it completely. The curse passes through blood. If you are wounded by tooth or claw, you have 30 days before the first transformation. I'm so sorry to whoever I've infected. I tried so hard to kill only with these hands, to never bite. But the hunger makes you careless, makes you forget. If you're reading this, if you've been cursed like me, I'm sorry. I looked for a cure for 41 years. There isn't one. I remembered Ellen. The last moment before she'd been killed. Klaus had bitten her hand. I checked the autopsy report. The coroner had noted the bite wound. Severe tissue damage to the right hand. Unusual bacterial content in the wound. Ellen had been dead for 2 weeks when she was supposed to transform, but 5 weeks after she died, the coroner disappeared, the woman examining Ellen's body. Dr. Sarah Chen, age 32. She vanished from the morgue on a Tuesday afternoon. Her car was found 3 days later near the Chequamegon-Nicolet National Forest. They never found her body. But there's a new wolf research area now, marked on the maps in 1987. 30 square miles closed to the public. I think about that sometimes. About Klaus hunting for 41 years. About how he said he'd tried to stop, tried to only kill animals, but the hunger always won. I think about Dr. Chen. About whether she's still fighting the hunger, or whether she's given in. I think about the other escaped POWs. About whether they're still out there, in those closed forests, hunting and hiding and hating what they've become. Mostly, though, I think about what Klaus said in the bunker, right before he died. The wolf wins. Sometimes at night, I wake up hungry, really hungry. Hungry in a way that doesn't make sense, and I find myself looking out my window at the neighbors walking their dog, and I start calculating how fast they are, how much they'd struggle, what they'd taste like. Then I remember I was never bitten, I was never scratched. I'm not cursed, but the thoughts don't go away as quickly as they should. If you're planning to camp in Wisconsin or Minnesota or Montana or any of those northern forests with the wolf research areas, don't. Find somewhere else. And if you're already there and you hear howling that sounds almost like words, or worse, sounds like someone you know calling for help, get in your car and drive until you're in cell range. Don't investigate, don't try to help, because by the time you realize it's mimicking voices, you're already in its territory, and it's already decided whether you're food or whether you're going to be its replacement. The hunger never stops, even when you want it to. My name is Patricia Lansing, and I've been a park ranger for 13 years. That's long enough to hear every ghost story, every local legend, every strange thing that supposedly happened in these woods. And in 13 years, I'd never believed a single one of them. The Cherokee National Forest is my home, specifically the Bald River Gorge area, deep ravines, hidden waterfalls, miles of hiking trails that wind through some of the most beautiful and dangerous terrain in Tennessee. I know every inch of these woods. I know which rocks get slippery after rain, which trails flood first, where the cell phone dead zones are. I know my job. I wasn't always a ranger. Before this, I was a social worker in Knoxville. I spent 5 years dealing with child abuse cases, neglect cases, kids who got hurt by the very people who were supposed to protect them. I thought I could save them all. I thought if I just worked hard enough, cared enough, I could make a difference. I was wrong. The day I quit was the day I showed up to check on a little boy named Marcus, age 6, and found out I was 3 hours too late. His stepfather had, well, it doesn't matter what happened. What matters is that I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't carry all that pain, all those faces, all those children I'd failed. So I came here, to the woods, where things made sense, where danger was straightforward, a storm, a bear, a fall. Nothing complicated, nothing that kept me awake at night. That's what I thought, anyway. April 23rd, 1975 started like any normal day. I was at the ranger station at 6 in the morning going through the daily checklist. Spring had been wet this year. The creeks were running high and fast, and we'd had to close 2 trails because of flooding. The rhododendrons were just starting to bloom, which meant more visitors would be coming through soon. The radio crackled at 6:47 a.m. "Base, this is Site 4. We have a situation." It was Tom Chen, one of our weekend volunteers who monitored the main campground. His voice sounded tight. "Family just reported their daughter missing, 8-year-old girl, Emma Rodriguez. They say she wandered off yesterday afternoon and never came back." My stomach dropped. Yesterday afternoon meant she'd been out there all night, in the rain, a child. I grabbed my pack and headed for the door. "I'm on it. Get me everything." what she was wearing, where they last saw her, any medical conditions. By 7 a.m., we had a search team assembled, 4 rangers total. Me, Kyle Morrison, he was 28 and had grown up in the area, spoke some Cherokee from his grandmother, and 2 others from neighboring stations. We split up the search grid. Kyle and I took the Bald River Ravine area, the last place the family had been hiking before Emma disappeared. The woods felt different that morning. Maybe it was just the weather. Gray sky, mist hanging between the trees. But something about the air felt heavy, wrong, like the forest was holding its breath. Ghost stories were for campfire entertainment, I muttered to Kyle as we hiked down toward the ravine. In 13 years, I'd heard every local legend about spirits of lost children in these ravines, all explainable by wind, animals, imagination. Kyle gave me a look. My grandmother used to say these ravines were sacred. Trail of Tears came through here in 1838. Thousands of Cherokee people forced to march to Oklahoma. A lot of them died along the way. A lot of children. I know the history, I said, checking my map. Doesn't mean the place is haunted. Didn't say it was haunted, just said it was sacred. He adjusted his pack. My grandmother said you should always acknowledge the land here. Respect what happened. Otherwise what? He shrugged. Otherwise, the land remembers. Didn't respond to that. We had a missing child to find. That was real. That mattered. Everything else was just stories. We reached the ravine at 7:45 a.m. The creek was running fast and loud, swollen from the spring rains. Waterfalls crashed down the rocks, sending up spray that soaked everything. The temperature had dropped. It felt at least 10 degrees colder down here in the gorge. "Emma!" I called out. "Emma Rodriguez, can you hear me?" Nothing but the sound of water. We split up. Kyle taking the east side of the creek, me taking the west. Standard search pattern. We'd work our way downstream, checking every hiding spot, every cave, every place a scared child might have crawled to get out of the rain. That's when I saw it. Emma's backpack, bright pink with purple flowers, floating in a small eddy near the bank. I radioed Kyle immediately. Found her backpack, west bank, about 200 yards from the trailhead. But something was wrong. The backpack was floating, sure, but it should have been miles downstream by now. The current here was strong enough to sweep away a grown man. How had it stayed in this one spot? Kyle crossed the creek using the rocks, came over to look. He pulled the backpack out of the water. It was soaked but intact. Inside, a water bottle, some snacks, a stuffed rabbit. "She wouldn't leave this behind," I said. "Kids her age, they hold on to their favorite things." "Unless she dropped it while running," Kyle said quietly. "Running from what?" He didn't answer. He was looking at something on the ground. I followed his gaze. Footprints in the mud, small, child-sized, barefoot, but wrong. The toes were too long. The stride was too wide, at least 10 feet between prints. And the pattern, it looked like the child had been skipping or leaping. No 8-year-old could jump that far. "What the hell?" I knelt down to examine them closer. That's when we heard it. Laughter. Children's laughter, echoing through the ravine. Multiple voices, high and bright like kids playing tag. Kyle and I looked at each other. "Hello?" I called out. "Is any op? Nither, Emma?" The laughter continued, getting closer, all around us. Kyle grabbed his radio. "Base, this is Kyle. Are there any other families with children registered in the park today?" Static then. "Negative. Only registered visitors are the Rodriguez family, and their other 2 kids are with us at base camp." The laughter was coming from everywhere now. Behind us, ahead of us, from across the creek. Children singing something in a language I didn't understand. Kyle's face had gone pale. "That's Cherokee. An old song, really old." "What are they saying?" He listened for a moment, then shook his head. I can't make out all the words. Something about walking, about being tired." The temperature dropped again. I could see my breath now. "Kyle," I said slowly, "there's no one else here, right?" Before he could answer, my radio crackled. All 4 rangers in different parts of the forest were reporting the same thing. Children's voices, laughter, singing. But there were no children in the park. We followed the footprints deeper into the ravine. I know. That sounds stupid now. But you have to understand, we were looking for a missing child. Every instinct I had said to follow any lead, any sign that Emma had been through here. The prints led us off the main trail, through a thick stand of rhododendrons. The bushes were so dense we had to push through them, branches scraping our faces. The sound of the creek faded behind us. The children's laughter faded too. Then we stepped into a clearing I'd never seen before, and I'd hiked this area 100 times. The clearing was maybe 30 feet across, ringed by ancient trees. The ground was covered in moss, thick and soft. And in the center, "Oh my God," Kyle whispered. 23 wooden crosses, small ones, child-sized. They were old, the wood gray and weathered, but someone had carved names into them. Names and symbols I didn't recognize. "Cherokee syllabary," Kyle said. He moved closer to read them. "Walking bird, age 7. Little wolf, age 5. White feather, age 8. He looked at me, and I saw fear in his eyes. "These are all dated 1838 and 1839. Trail of Tears era." "Children who died on the march," I said. My voice sounded strange in my own ears. "They must have buried them here." "Not buried. There are no graves, just markers." Kyle touched one of the crosses. "My grandmother told me stories. She said when Cherokee families were forced to march, some of the children couldn't keep up. They got sick, or they were too weak, or they just gave out. And there was no time to stop. The soldiers wouldn't let them stop. So parents had to leave their children behind, with promises they'd come back for them. Did they come back? What do you think?" The clearing felt wrong, too quiet, too still, like we were being watched. "We need to keep looking for Emma," I said. But I couldn't take my eyes off those crosses. 23 children, 23 families who'd had to make an impossible choice. That's when the voices started again. This time they weren't laughing. They were calling out, in English. "Help us. Please help us. We're lost. Where's my mother? I'm so cold." The voices were coming from everywhere and nowhere. Child voices, desperate and scared. Kyle grabbed my arm. "Patricia, look." I followed his gaze. There, at the edge of the clearing, I saw movement. Small figures darting between the trees. Children wearing old-fashioned clothes. Simple dresses, worn trousers, no shoes. Their clothes were soaked through like they'd been walking in the rain. But I could see through them. "Tell me you're seeing this," I said. "I'm seeing it." One of the figures stepped closer. A little girl, maybe 10 years old. She looked solid enough, real enough, except her eyes. They were hollow, empty. She spoke in Cherokee. Kyle translated, his voice shaking. "She says her name is Ayita. She says they've been waiting. They were told to wait here and someone would come back for them. But no one ever came." "Ayita," I said, my heart pounding. "We're looking for a little girl. Her name is Emma. Have you seen her?" Ayita tilted her head. "Emma is playing with us. She's one of us now." "No," I said firmly. "She's not one of you. She's alive. She has a family looking for her. We need to find her." "We all had families," Ayita said, and now I could understand her somehow, though I knew she was speaking Cherokee. "They left us. They promised to come back. We waited so long." More children were appearing now, dozens of them emerging from the trees, from behind the crosses, from the mist itself. All of them translucent, all of them watching us with those empty eyes. My radio crackled. "Patricia, this is base. You need to evacuate the area immediately. We found Emma." Relief flooded through me. "Thank God. Where?" "She walked into the visitor center 20 minutes ago. Says she's been playing with the lost children since yesterday. She won't stop talking about them. She won't stop crying. My relief vanished. What do you mean, won't stop crying? She keeps saying they won't let her friends leave. What friends? A long pause, then, Patricia, 3 more children are missing. All reported in the last hour. All disappeared from campgrounds near Bald River. Ages 6, 7, and 9. The ghost children around us started laughing again, but this time it wasn't playful, it was hungry. The journey is so long, Aida said. We're so tired of walking alone. These new children will stay with us. They'll play with us. Forever. Kyle and I ran. We crashed through the rhododendrons, branches tearing at our clothes. Behind us, the children's laughter followed, getting louder, more intense. The temperature kept dropping. It had to be below freezing now, even though it was April and should have been 65 degrees. My radio was going crazy. All the other rangers reporting the same things: children's voices, sudden cold, equipment malfunctioning, and 3 missing kids: Melissa Vaughn, 6 years old, Timothy, Creek, 7, and Jacob Marsh, 9, all last seen near their campsites an hour ago. Where would they go? I panted as we ran. If those things took them, where would they take them? The creek, Kyle said. Water is sacred in Cherokee tradition. It's a boundary between worlds. We changed direction, fighting our way back toward Bald River. The sound of rushing water grew louder. So did the children singing that same Cherokee song, but louder now, more insistent. Kyle was translating as we ran. Come play, come stay, the journey's too long. You'll never get home, we're tired of walking, stay here and rest. We burst out of the trees onto the creek bank and stopped dead. The 3 children were standing in the middle of the creek, water rushing around their legs up to their waists. They were just standing there, staring at the waterfall, not moving, not reacting to us calling their names, and they were holding hands with empty air. But I could see them now. Shimmer of small forms between the living children, ghost children holding their hands, keeping them in place. Melissa! I waded into the creek. The water was so cold it felt like knives stabbing my legs. Melissa, honey, look at me! The little girl didn't respond. Her eyes were glazed over, staring at nothing. Her lips were turning blue. I grabbed her shoulders. Her skin was ice cold, like she'd been in a freezer. They're so sad, she whispered without looking at me. They walked and never got home. Now they just want someone to play with. Forever. No, sweetie, you're going home. Right now. I tried to pull her toward the bank, but she wouldn't move. It was like she was rooted to the creek bed. Kyle was trying to get Timothy, having the same problem. The boy wouldn't budge. Then the voices changed. The children's laughter turned to screaming, wailing, angry, desperate, riot sounds that made my bones ache. The water around the kids started to freeze. I'm not kidding. The water, running water, moving water, started forming ice crystals. They spread across the surface, creeping up the children's legs, coating their clothes. Kyle, we need to get them out now! We each grabbed a child. Kyle took Timothy. I grabbed Melissa with one arm and reached for Jacob with the other. We pulled hard, fighting against whatever force was holding them. The ice cracked. The children came free. And that's when we saw them clearly. Dozens of ghost children standing in the creek and on the banks, translucent but visible now, solid enough to see every detail. They were soaking wet, barefoot, dressed in rags. Their eyes weren't empty anymore. They were full of sadness and rage. Ancient rage. They moved toward us, fast, too fast, impossibly fast. 1 second they were 20 feet away. The next they were surrounding us. I felt tiny cold hands grabbing at my clothes, my hair, my skin. Each touch burned like frostbite. Patricia! Kyle was struggling too, ghost children clinging to him, pulling him back toward the water. The living children were dead weight in our arms, their bodies going limp from hypothermia. We had to get them out. We had to... My mind suddenly flooded with visions. I saw the Trail of Tears march. Thousands of people forced to walk through winter, through storms, with no shelter, no food. I saw children's feet bleeding, leaving red prints in the snow. I saw them collapsing from exhaustion. I saw parents carrying them until they couldn't anymore, their own bodies giving out. I saw children left behind in ravines just like this one. Parents crying, promising to come back for them, knowing it was a lie. Children calling after them, "Mother, don't leave me. Father, I'm scared." I saw those children waiting. Days, weeks, months, years, waiting for Pata, Rents who would never return. I saw 137 years of waiting, of slowly understanding they'd been abandoned, of sadness turning to anger, anger turning to something dark and hungry and wrong. The vision was so overwhelming I almost dropped Melissa. My legs gave out and I fell to my knees in the creek. Big mistake. The cold hit me like a hammer, my joints locking up, my muscles screaming. Aida appeared in front of me, the little girl ghost I'd seen in the clearing. She looked even more solid now, more real. "They left us," she said, and her voice was full of so much pain it made my chest ache. "They promised to return. We waited so long. We're so tired of waiting. These new children will stay. They'll play with us. They'll walk with us. Forever." Kyle was on his knees too, also trapped by the cold. The living children were convulsing now, lips blue, fingers turning black from frostbite. We were losing them. I looked at Aita, at her ancient child's face, and understood something. These ghosts weren't evil. They were children. Lonely, abandoned, traumatized children who'd been left behind for 137 years. They didn't understand they were killing these kids. They just wanted friends. They just wanted someone to stay. But children without adult guidance for that long, they'd forgotten how to be human. They'd become something else. "Aida," I said through chattering teeth, "I know you're tired. I know you waited. But you don't have to wait anymore. The journey is over. You can rest now." "There is no rest," she said. "Only walking. Forever walking. That's what they told us. Keep walking. It's not far now. But it's always far. It's always too far." Kyle said something in Cherokee. His voice was weak but clear. He repeated it in English. "Your parents are waiting for you. At the end of the journey. Not here. Further on. You have to walk further. But not in this world anymore." The ghost children looked confused, agitated. The temperature dropped even further. My breath was coming out as ice crystals now. The living children had stopped convulsing. They were too cold to even shiver. I had maybe 30 seconds before we lost them. Before we all died here. More rangers were crashing through the trees. Backup had arrived, a team of 6. They saw everything. The ghosts, the ice, the dying children. I heard someone scream, "Patricia, what do we—" "Sing!" I shouted. I didn't know why I said it. It just came out. And I started singing. A lullaby my mother used to sing to me when I was scared. Simple, soothing. A promise that everything would be okay, that you were safe, that you could rest now. The ghost children stopped moving. One of the other rangers, Sarah Martinez, she had kids of her own, joined in. Then another. Kyle started teaching them Cherokee lullabies, translating the words, and we all sang together, creating a wall of sound, of comfort, of permission to rest. The ghost children began to cry, not angry or scary, just sad. Children crying because they were tired and wanted to go home. One by one, they started to fade, not disappearing in fear or pain, in relief. Aita approached me. She reached out and touched my face. It felt like someone pressing dry ice against my skin, burning cold. But I didn't pull away. "Thank you," she whispered, "for remembering us." She turned to the other ghosts. "The journey is over. We can stop walking now." They vanished like mist in sunlight, peacefully. Finally home. All except 10. 10 ghost children remained, They were darker than the others, more solid. Their eyes weren't sad. They were black, empty, wrong. Aita's face filled with terror. "Run!" she screamed at us. "Those aren't children anymore." Then she disappeared. The 10 ghost children smiled at us. It wasn't a child's smile. It was something ancient and hungry wearing a child's face. The temperature didn't just drop. It plummeted. 20 below zero in seconds. The water around us froze solid, locking our legs in place. Ice spread across the creek, up the banks, coating the trees. One of the rangers' radios shattered, the plastic cracking from the cold. Someone's flashlight exploded. Our breaths came out as ice that fell to the ground like broken glass. "What are they?" Sarah gasped. Kyle's teeth were chattering so hard he could barely speak. Children who died in rage, who were consumed by being abandoned. They'd been feeding on grief for so long they became something else. The dark children moved closer. They didn't walk. They glided across the ice, their feet not touching the ground. One of them reached toward Sarah. Its hand passed right through her jacket, her shirt, her skin. She screamed, a sound of pure agony. When the ghost pulled its hand back, there was frost on her chest, right over her heart. "They can reach inside you," Kyle said. "They can freeze your heart, your blood. They can make you so sad you don't want to live anymore." I felt it then, the sadness pressing in on me. Every child I'd failed as a social worker, every case I'd lost. Marcus's face, frozen in my memory. All my guilt, my pain, my sense of failure. It all came flooding back, amplified 1,000 times. I didn't want to go on anymore. What was the point? I'd failed Marcus. I was failing these children. I failed everyone. The living kids in our arms had stopped breathing. "No," I whispered. Then louder, "No!" I forced myself to look at Melissa's face. This child, right here, right now. She was still alive. Barely, but alive. I wasn't going to fail her. I pulled her closer, sharing what little body heat I had left. "Hold on, baby. Please hold on." The dark children laughed. It sounded like ice breaking. One of them spoke. "You can't save them. You couldn't save any of them. You're a failure. A coward. You ran away to the woods because you couldn't handle reality. And now you're going to die here, just like us. Frozen, abandoned, forgotten." Every word hit like a punch, because it was true. Wasn't it? No, it wasn't. I'd left social work because I was broken, yes. But I'd come here and helped hundreds of people. Rescued lost hikers. Saved lives. Protected this forest. I hadn't run away. I'd found a new way to help. "You're wrong," I said to the dark children. "You died in terrible pain, and I'm sorry for that. No child should suffer what you suffered. But you don't get to use that pain to hurt others. You don't get to make more children suffer because you suffered." The dark children screamed, a sound that made the ice crack, that made my ears ring. They rushed at us all at once. I felt a ghost hand plunge into my chest. Cold, like I'd never felt, spreading from inside. My heart stuttered, slowed. I saw frost spreading across my vision. This is it, I thought. This is how I die. Then Kyle screamed something in Cherokee, loud, desperate, calling out to something. The air shimmered. New ghosts appeared. But these weren't children. They were adults. Cherokee elders dressed in the same tattered clothes from the 1830s, men and women with kind, tired faces. Dozens of them, appearing all around us. The dark children shrieked and tried to run, but the adult ghosts were faster. They surrounded the dark entities, reaching out with translucent arms. "We never left you," one of the elder ghosts said in Cherokee. Kyle was translating through his pain. "We've been calling you home. We've been waiting, but you wouldn't listen. You were too angry to hear us." The dark children struggled, lashing out. But the adult ghosts held firm, not violently, lovingly, the way parents hold a child having a nightmare. "Come home now," the elders said. "The journey is over. We're all going home together." The dark children fought. They screamed. They raged. Then, one by one, they broke down. The rage cracked. Underneath, they were just terrified children. Children who'd been alone for so long, they'd forgotten what love felt like. They collapsed into sobs. Real crying. Human and heartbroken. The elder. Ghosts embraced them. Families reuniting across time and death. "I'm sorry," one of the dark children cried. "I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." "Hush now," an elder ghost murmured. "You're forgiven. You're loved. You're home." The cold began to lift. The ice started to melt. I could feel my heart beating stronger. The ghosts faded together, children and elders. Families complete at last. The last thing I saw was a dark child ghost holding hands with what must have been its mother, both of them smiling, peaceful. Then they were gone. The living children in our arms gasped, drawing in desperate breaths. Their eyes opened. They were alive. We'd saved them. We'd saved them. I collapsed onto the creek bank, shaking so hard I couldn't stand. Someone was calling for medical evacuation. Someone else was wrapping blankets around the kids. Everything was chaos and relief and survival. But I could still feel where the ghost child had touched my face, where Aida had touched me. It burned like ice that would never thaw. The 3 children spent a week in the hospital. Severe hypothermia, partial frostbite. Melissa lost 3 toes. Timothy lost 2 fingers. Jacob would recover physically, but never spoke again after that day. Just stopped talking. Completely. The psychological trauma. That's still ongoing. Melissa is in her 30s now, and she still can't go near children's playgrounds. Says she hears singing. Says the cold comes back whenever she sees kids playing together. Doctors call it psychosomatic, post-traumatic stress. She knows better. I lost 3 toes myself. Frostbite across 30% of my body. I was hospitalized for 2 weeks. But the worst part is my face. Where Aida touched me, there's a scar, shaped exactly like a child's handprint. The tissue is permanently discolored, permanently cold to the touch. On cold days, it burns. On warm days, it aches. I've never been able to cover it with makeup. People stare. I tell them it's from the rescue operation, which is true, technically. The official report said, flash freeze event due to microburst weather phenomenon. Children exposed to elements after wandering from campground. No evidence of negligence. They couldn't exactly write ghost children from the Trail of Tears tried to trap living kids in the creek. Who would believe that? But the Cherokee Nation believed us. The day after the incident, April 24th, elders came to perform a ceremony in the ravine. They wouldn't let us attend, said it was private. But Kyle told me what they said afterward. Those children were trapped by our collective grief, the elders explained. Everyone who walked the trail carried sorrow so deep it stained the land. The dead children couldn't move on because we, the living, wouldn't let them go. We kept mourning them. Our pain anchored them here. Your song, Ranger Lansing, gave permission to stop mourning, to remember with peace instead of pain. You let them rest. Since then, Bald River Gorge gets closed every April 23rd. Official reason, wildlife nesting protection. Real reason, the anniversary manifests residual activity. Every year, hundreds of hikers report hearing children singing near the ravine. Laughter, playing. But it's peaceful now, not angry. I transferred to the education department after I physically recovered. Developed a program teaching visitors about the Trail of Tears, about the history of Cherokee people in this area, about what happened here. I did research, found documentation. 4,000 people died on the Trail of Tears. At least 800 were children. We only found 23 grave markers in Cherokee National Forest ravines. How many more are unmarked? How many more children died and were never remembered? That question haunts me. In 1989, I got a letter from Melissa Vaughn. She was 20 years old then. "Dear Ranger Lansing," she wrote, "I still hear them sometimes. The children. But they're not sad anymore. They're not angry. They're singing the song you taught them, the one about being safe and home. I think they're telling us they made it. I think they're telling us it's okay now." I keep that letter in my desk drawer. Over the years, I've researched similar incidents at other Trail of Tears sites. Arkansas, Missouri, Kentucky, Oklahoma. Ghost children, living children going missing, the same pattern over and over. All the incidents stopped after formal remembrance ceremonies, after communities acknowledged the dead, after people gave permission for grief to transform into peace. It's 2005 now. I'm retired, 67 years old, living in a small house near Knoxville. I sleep with every light on. Can't help it. But last week something happened that made me think it's truly over. I was hiking near Bald River. Yes, I still go back sometimes, and I heard children singing. That Cherokee song about the journey being over. I stopped walking, listened. Then a little girl's voice, clear as day. "Thank you for remembering us." "Aida." I smiled. "You're welcome, sweetie. Rest well." The singing faded into the sound of the creek, and I felt lighter, like something I'd been carrying for 30 years had finally been set down. I write this now as a warning, but also as guidance. If you're hiking in the southeastern forests, especially near Trail of Tears routes, and you hear children's laughter when no children should be there, don't ignore it. Don't dismiss it as wind or animals. Those are real voices. If you feel sudden, overwhelming sadness, cold that doesn't match the weather, or see small figures watching from the trees, acknowledge them, out loud. Say, "I remember you. I'm sorry for what happened. You can rest now." Sometimes the dead aren't trying to hurt us. They're just trying to be remembered, trying to hear someone say their journey mattered, and they can finally stop walking. But if you don't acknowledge them, if you pretend they're not there, if you disrespect the land and what happened there, that's when the sadness turns to anger. That's when children's laughter, Becca, children screaming. And that's when they decide if they have to keep walking forever, you're going to walk with them. I touch the cold scar on my face, that permanent handprint, and I remember all of them. And I hope that's enough. My name is Leonard Pritchard, and I need to tell you something before it's too late. I've been a forest ranger for 21 years, fire watch mostly, up in the towers where you can see smoke from 50 miles away. It's lonely work, but I like it that way. After what I saw in the war, I wanted peace. Trees don't shoot at you. Mountains don't explode. It's November 1967, and I'm sitting in Tower 7 in the Cranberry Wilderness, West Virginia. This is my last rotation before winter shuts everything down. 3 more days, then I head home to Ruth and the kids. Ruth's making her apple pie for Thanksgiving. I can almost smell it from here. The tower is 60 feet tall, all metal and wood, creaking in the wind. Up here at 4,500 feet, you're above most of the world. On clear days, I can see Point Pleasant, about 50 miles west. That's where all the crazy talk has been coming from lately. You probably heard about it on the news. The Mothman sightings. Started last year. Over 100 people claiming they saw something. A giant creature with wings and glowing red eyes. 7 feet tall, they say. Appears at night. Scares people half to death. I didn't believe a word of it. I've seen barn owls plenty of times. Big ones with golden eyes that catch your flashlight beam. Looks spooky if you're not expecting it. And sandhill cranes? They're huge birds, stand over 4 feet tall, and they make the strangest sounds. Put those things together with some fog and darkness, and people's imaginations run wild. Nature always has a logical explanation. That's what I told Jim, my supervisor, when he asked if I'd heard anything strange up here. "Just the wind and the owls," I said. "Same as always." That was 2 days ago, before I saw what I saw. Let me back up a little. November 29th started normal. Cold morning, frost on the windows. I made coffee on the camp stove and did my first escape. And at dawn, that's when I checked the horizon with binoculars looking for smoke. Fire season's mostly over, but you never know. Somebody drops a cigarette, wind picks up, and suddenly you've got a problem. Everything looked fine. Brown and gray forest, stretching forever, early snow on the peaks. Then I noticed the crows. Now I see crows every day. They're smart birds, always around. But this was different. There must have been 300 of them, all flying in the same direction. Perfect formation, like they'd been trained. Flying east, away from the valley below my tower. It wasn't migration season, and crows don't fly like that normally. They wander, they argue, they split up. These ones were fleeing. That's the word that came to my mind. Fleeing. I watched them until they disappeared over the ridge. Then I went back to my coffee, telling myself it was nothing, maybe a storm coming. Animals can sense weather changes, but the sky was clear. That night, I was doing my evening watch when I saw the heat signature. I've got a thermal scope up here, military surplus from the war. Lets you see warm things in the dark, deer, bears, people. Useful for spotting campfires that might get out of control. I was scanning the valley when something huge showed up on the scope. 12 miles out, glowing white-hot against the cold background. Big as a car, but it was moving, flying. I adjusted the focus, thinking maybe it was a helicopter. But helicopters don't move like this thing was moving. It crossed 8 miles in about 30 seconds. I did the math in my head. That's over 600 miles per hour. No helicopter can do that. No airplane flies that low through mountains. I grabbed my binoculars, but by the time I got them focused, the thing was gone. The radio crackled behind me. I turned around. Static hissed from the speaker, then clicking sounds. Not random. It sounded almost like Morse code, but wrong. The rhythm was off. I learned Morse in the Army, used it plenty of times. This was close, but not quite right. I picked up the handset. Tower 7 to base. Jim, you there? More clicking, then silence. Base, this is Leonard at Tower 7. Radio check. Nothing. The clicking started again, louder now. It hurt my ears. I turned down the volume, but it didn't help. The sound seemed to come from inside my head. Then it stopped. The radio went back to normal static. I tried calling base again, and this time Jim answered right away. Tower 7, what's up? Did you just try to reach me? I was getting weird interference. Negative. Line's been quiet all evening. Probably just atmospheric. You know how it gets up there. I wanted to tell him about the heat signature, the impossible speed, but something stopped me. He'd think I was seeing things, getting cabin fever. They'd pull me down early, and I needed these last 3 days. Money's tight with 4 kids. Yeah, probably atmospheric, I said. Tower 7 out. I didn't sleep much that night. Next morning, I climbed down the tower to check on something I'd spotted the day before. About a mile south, I'd seen deer gathered in a clearing. Lots of them, maybe 20. That's unusual. Deer don't herd up like that unless something's wrong. It's part of my job to check on things like that. Could be disease. Could be they found a salt lick. Either way, I needed to know. The hike took 40 minutes through snow and dead leaves. Cold morning, breath steaming. I had my rifle, more out of habit than worry. Nothing dangerous out here except maybe a black bear, and they're usually asleep by now. I found the clearing. What I saw there made my stomach drop. 14 deer, all dead, arranged in a perfect circle about 50 yards across. Their bodies were facing outward, like they'd been running away from something in the center. I walked closer, rifle ready. The deer had no wounds, no blood, no sign they'd been attacked by wolves or mountain lions. They just looked scared. Their eyes were wrong, burst open from the inside like something had pushed out through them. In the center of the circle, the grass was burned. Not burned like fire, burned like acid or radiation or something I didn't have a word for. The grass was crystallized, turned to glass, and in that crystallized area was a shape, a print, like a wing had pressed down into the earth, 12 feet from tip to tip. I knelt down, touched the crystallized grass. It crumbled under my fingers, cold and sharp. Around the wing print, the ground was warm. Not hot, just warm. like something had been there recently, giving off heat. My hands were shaking. I stood up, turned in a slow circle, looking at the tree line. Nothing moved, but I felt watched. You know that feeling? When the hair on your neck stands up and your body knows something your brain doesn't want to admit? Something had killed these deer. Something big enough to leave a 12-foot wing print. Something that scared them so badly their eyes exploded. I took photos with my Polaroid camera, documented everything. Then I hiked back to the tower as fast as I could without running. When I got to the radio, my hands were still shaking so bad I could barely hold the handset. Base, this is Tower 7. Jim, I need to report something. Wildlife deaths, multiple casualties, unusual circumstances. Jim's voice came back casual, unconcerned. Can it wait till spring? We're pulling everyone out in 3 days. Whatever it is, it'll keep. Jim, there's 14 dead deer in a circle with a burn pattern that doesn't make any... The radio died. Not static, not low battery, just dead. Complete silence. I checked the connections. Everything looked fine. I tried the backup radio. Dead. I checked the batteries. They'd been fully charged yesterday. Now they showed 0 power. The tower's generator was next. I went down to check it. Wouldn't start. Fuel was fine. Engine looked good, but it wouldn't even turn over. My backup batteries for the lights? Drained. Every single one. I stood there in the cold November afternoon, realizing I was completely cut off. No radio, no generator, no lights after dark. Just me and whatever was out there in the forest. That's when I saw it for the first time. Dusk was settling in, that gray time between day and night when your eyes play tricks. I was at the tower window looking out over the clearing around the tower base. At the edge of the tree line, about 150 yards away, something stood. Man-shaped, but wrong. Too tall, had to be over 7 feet. Arms too long, hanging past where knees should be. Shoulders too wide, like a football player wearing pads under his skin. I grabbed my binoculars, hands shaking again. The figure didn't move, just stood there at the forest edge, perfectly still. I focused the binoculars and saw its eyes. Red, glowing red, like highway reflectors in headlights. But these weren't reflecting my light. They were glowing from inside, bright, like hot coals in a fire. I stared for 10 seconds, maybe 20. It didn't move, didn't blink, just watched me with those burning red eyes. I looked away to grab my rifle from the corner. When I looked back, it was gone. Not walked away, not hidden behind a tree, just gone. Like it had never been there. My heart was hammering. I scanned the tree line with the binoculars. Nothing. Then I saw it again, on the opposite side of the clearing. 200 yards away, across open ground it couldn't have crossed without me seeing. Same figure, same glowing eyes, watching me. I raised the rifle, looking through the scope. The figure was clearer now, gray skin or maybe gray fur. The proportions were all wrong for a human, the arms bent in places arms shouldn't bend. And behind it, I could see something else. Something folded against its back. Wings. I blinked, looked again. The figure was gone. For the next 3 hours, it kept appearing. Different spots around the clearing. Sometimes close to the toe, or sometimes far away, never moving while I watched it, just appearing in new locations every time I looked away. I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. I sat with my back to the wall, rifle across my lap, watching the windows. Around 3 a.m., something landed on the tower roof. The whole structure shook. Metal creaked. I heard footsteps above me. Heavy, deliberate, pacing back and forth across the metal platform. Then, silence. I waited, barely breathing. A face appeared at the window, upside down. It was hanging from the roof, looking in at me. Gray skin stretched over a skull that was almost human, but not quite. No nose, just 2 slits. No mouth that I could see. And those eyes. Those terrible red eyes. Glowing so bright I could see them even with my own lights off. We stared at each other for maybe 5 seconds. Then it was gone. I heard wings, huge wings, flapping as it took off into the darkness. I sat there until dawn, shaking, praying, trying to understand what I'd seen. When the sun came up, I made a decision. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't hallucinating. Something real was out there, and I needed to understand what. If I just ran, told people I'd seen a monster, they'd think I'd lost my mind. I needed proof. I needed answers. The tower has a small library, books left by rangers over the years, mostly field guides and forestry manuals. But I remembered seeing some older books, journals from rangers who'd worked here before me. I found one from 1922, written by a ranger named Thomas Webb. His handwriting was shaky, hard to read, but one entry stood out. September 14th, 1922. Have seen the creature again. 3 nights now. Gray-skinned devil with wings like a moth, eyes that burn in the dark. It watches the valley. I believe it knows something we don't. The mines are still working, men going down every day, but the creature watches. It knows. God help me, I think it's trying to warn us. September 28th, 1922. Mine explosion yesterday. 87 men dead. The creature is gone. I tried to tell the mine supervisor, but he laughed at me. Said I'd been alone too long. Those men died because no one would listen. My blood went cold. I kept searching. Found another journal from 1903. Different ranger, same story. Sightings of a winged creature for 3 weeks. Then a train derailment that killed 39 people. The creature disappeared after the disaster. And older still, an 1851 account, not from a ranger but from a frontier surveyor, described a night devil with wings of dust and eyes of fire appearing before a spring flood that killed over 200 settlers. The pattern was clear. The creature appeared 2 or 3 weeks before a disaster. It tried to warn people, somehow, through its presence, through causing fear. And when the disaster happened, it vanished. It wasn't causing the disasters. It was trying to prevent them. I thought about Point Pleasant. The sightings started over a year ago, and they'd been increasing. Over 100 witnesses. And Point Pleasant had something dangerous. The Silver Bridge. Built in 1928, one of the first suspension bridges of its kind. Thousands of cars crossed it every day, connecting West Virginia to Ohio over the river. If something happened to that bridge during rush hour, I had to warn them. Had to get down from this tower, hike 3 days to the nearest road, and convince someone that a disaster was coming. But first, I needed to understand more. The creature was still here, still circling, and I had a feeling it wanted me to understand. That second night, it got bolder. It circled the tower constantly, always just beyond clear sight. I'd see movement in the darkness, catch glimpses, a wing spreading, a clawed hand gripping a tree, those red eyes watching from the shadows. The radio came back on around midnight, but it wasn't normal broadcast. Every frequency I turned to had the same thing, clicking sounds, that same wrong rhythm Morse code I'd heard before. I listened carefully this time. I wrote down what I heard, translating as best I could. Bridge, river, death, run. The message repeated, over and over. Bridge, river, death, run. It wasn't calling for help. It was trying to give a warning. The creature wasn't just some animal or monster. It was intelligent. It was trying to communicate. And it was using my radio, somehow manipulating electromagnetic fields to send a message. I grabbed a flashlight and went to the window. "I hear you," I shouted into the darkness. "I understand. The bridge. You're warning about the Silver Bridge." Something moved in the trees. Closer now. I saw it clearly for the first time. The full shape of it. 7 feet tall, standing upright like a man. Gray skin that looked almost like leather. Massive wings folded against its back, each wing at least 10 feet long. Arms that hung to its knees, ending in hands with too many fingers. Legs that bent backward, like a bird's. And that face. Those eyes. It stepped out of the tree line, into the small clearing around my tower. Snow melted where its feet touched the ground. The air around it seemed to shimmer with heat. We stared at each other across 50 yards of open space. Then it did something that made my heart stop. It pointed. One long, clawed finger extended, pointing west, toward Point Pleasant, toward the bridge. "I understand," I called out. "I'll warn them. I'll make them listen." The creature tilted its head. Then it did something else, something impossible. It appeared in two places at once. One moment it was at the tree line. The next it was also at the base of my tower, looking up at me. Both versions of it, solid and real, moving independently. Then both vanished, and it was suddenly on the tower roof again. I heard its weight, heard the metal groaning. It was showing me what it could do, demonstrating that the normal rules didn't apply to it. A claw scraped against my window. I jumped back, raising my rifle. But I didn't shoot. Somehow, I knew it wasn't trying to hurt me. It pressed against the glass. Up close, I could see its eyes weren't simple. They were compound, like an insect's eyes, made of thousands of tiny facets. Each facet glowed with inner red light. And then I felt it in my mind. Not words, images, a vision forced into my brain like a nail driven through my skull. I saw the Silver Bridge, saw it as clearly as if I was standing on it. Rush hour traffic, cars bumper to bumper. I could see the date on a calendar in a car dashboard, December 15th, 1967. Then the bridge started to shake. I watched in horror as one of the eye bars, the metal pieces that held the suspension cables, snapped. The sound was like a gunshot. Then another broke. Then another. Chain reaction. The bridge folded in on itself, dumping cars and people into the Ohio River below. The water was freezing cold. I could feel it, somehow, through the vision. 44 degrees. People were screaming, drowning, trapped in cars as they sank. Some made it to the surface, but the cold was killing them in minutes. Their lungs were shutting down. Their hearts were stopping. 46 people died in my vision. I counted them as they slipped under the water. Then the vision changed. I saw the creature at other disasters. Earthquakes, floods, building collapses. Always there beforehand. Always watching. Always trying to warn. I saw it across centuries, an immortal witness to human tragedy, unable to stop what it could see coming. It existed outside normal time somehow. Saw future events like we see the present. Was drawn to disasters the way moths are drawn to flames. Compelled, unable to resist. And it was showing me this. Choosing me to carry the warning. The vision ended. I staggered back from the window, gasping. My nose was bleeding. My head felt like it had been split open. The creature was gone from the window. I heard wings flapping, moving away into the night. When I checked the radio, every electronic device in the tower was dead. Permanently destroyed. Even my watch had stopped, frozen at 5:04 p.m. The same time the bridge would collapse in my vision. I left at dawn. Didn't pack supplies, didn't prepare properly, just started hiking. 3 days to the nearest road normally, but I was going to do it in 2. Had to. December 15th was 16 days away. The hike was brutal. Cold wind, frozen streams, my knees screaming from an old war injury. But I kept moving. I thought about Ruth, thought about my kids, thought about the 46 people who would die if I couldn't convince someone to listen. On the second day, I twisted my ankle on loose rocks. I kept going anyway, using a branch as a crutch. I made it to the ranger station on December 1st. Jim was there drinking coffee and looking at me like I was a ghost. "Leonard? What the hell are you doing down here? You're supposed to be at Tower 7 for another day." "I saw something," I said. "Up at the tower, the Mothman. It's real, Jim, and it's trying to warn us about the Silver Bridge. It's going to collapse on December 15th. Jim stared at me. Then he picked up the phone. "I'm calling Doc Morrison. You need to talk to someone, Leonard. Isolation can do things to a man's mind." "I'm not crazy. There were dead deer, and the wing print, and the radio. You've been alone in that tower for 3 months. It's natural to start seeing things, hearing things." I tried to leave, to get to my truck. Jim blocked the door. You're not driving anywhere in your condition. Doc's coming to check you out. So I waited. And when Doc Morrison arrived with his concerned face and gentle voice, I ran. Stole Jim's truck keys right off his desk and drove straight to Point Pleasant. The police station was my first stop. They knew me. I'd called them before when I heard about Mothman sightings, always saying it was probably just owls and imagination. Now I was the one claiming to have seen. But it's real, I told the desk sergeant. And it's trying to warn us. The Silver Bridge is going to collapse on December 15th. You need to close it, get engineers to inspect it. Immediately. The sergeant looked at me with pity. Leonard, we appreciate your concern. But the bridge was inspected 3 months ago. It's perfectly safe. Check I-bar 330, I said, remembering the detail from my vision. There's a fracture, a microscopic crack that's getting worse. How would you know that? The Mothman showed me. It can see the future. It's trying to save people. The sergeant sighed. Go home, Leonard. Get some rest. I tried the bridge engineers next. They were even less interested. One of them laughed at me, actually laughed, when I mentioned Mothman. That's a folk story, he said. Mass hysteria. And you're a forest ranger. You should know better than to believe in fairy tales. The local newspaper was my last hope. They interviewed me, and I told them everything. The article ran on December 10th with the headline, Local Ranger Claims Mothman Predicted Bridge Disaster. The town treated it as entertainment, a joke. People pointed at me in the grocery store. Kids made Mothman jokes when I walked past, but I didn't give up. December 15th, 4:15 p.m. I stood at the west end of the Silver Bridge with a handmade sign, Bridge unsafe, do not cross, structural failure imminent. Cars honked at me. People yelled. Someone called the police. 2 officers arrived. I knew them both. Good men. But they looked at me like I was a dangerous lunatic. Leonard, you need to come with us. You're blocking traffic. The bridge is going to collapse, I said, in less than an hour. Please, just close it for 1 hour. If I'm wrong, you can arrest me. We're arresting you now, for your own good. I fought them. I'm not proud of it, but I fought. Took both of them to get me in cuffs and into the back of their patrol car. They drove me to the station, booked me for disorderly conduct and obstruction, put me in a holding cell. At 5:04 p.m., I heard the sound. Even free. I'm inside the station, 3 blocks away. I heard it. A crack like thunder, then screaming, then sirens. The officer at the desk grabbed the radio. His face went white. The bridge, he said. The Silver Bridge just collapsed. They let me out of the cell. Nobody said anything. We drove to the bridge, what was left of it. The center span had folded completely, dumping dozens of cars into the freezing Ohio River. Emergency crews were already there, pulling bodies from the water. Rescue boats searched for survivors. I stood on the bank and watched, counted the body bags as they lined them up. 46 people, just like in my vision. One of the engineers I'd talked to was there. He saw me, and his face crumpled. I-bar 330, he said quietly. That's what failed, just like you said. It had a fracture from manufacturing. Been there since 1928. We missed it in the inspection because, he paused, because our testing equipment malfunctioned. Electromagnetic interference, the tech said. All our sensors went haywire the week before the collapse. I didn't say anything. What could I say? The Mothman had tried to warn us. It had warned me, and I'd tried to warn them, and 46 people were dead anyway. They didn't charge me. The town was in too much shock, and honestly, I think they were ashamed. I'd tried to warn them. The crazy ranger with his Mothman story had been right, but being right didn't bring those people back. I lost my job. Psychologically unfit for duty, the review board said. Jim testified that I'd seemed unstable. Doc Morrison said I showed signs of isolation-induced psychosis. My warnings were treated as lucky guesses, coincidence. Only Ruth believed me. She saw my broken watch, still stopped at 5:04, saw my ruined radio equipment, fried by electromagnetic pulse, saw the Polaroid photos of the dead deer and the wing print. "You tried," she said, holding me while I cried. "You did everything you could." But it wasn't enough. 46 people were dead. I saw their faces in my dreams. Still do. I spent the next 5 years in and out of hospitals, depression, PTSD, survivor's guilt, though I hadn't been on the bridge. The psychiatrists called it prophetic trauma, believing yourself responsible for a tragedy you couldn't prevent. They gave me pills, therapy. None of it helped. Then, in 1973, something arrived in my mailbox. An unmarked envelope, no return address. Inside was a single moth wing, 10 inches long, gray and delicate like tissue paper. But it wasn't from any species I could identify. Too large, wrong structure, and a note, handwritten in letters I didn't recognize. Chicago, March. Flight 191. Engine failure. You know now how to make them listen. My hands shook as I read it. The creature was still out there, still seeing disasters before they happened. And it was asking me to try again. I called the FAA, called the airline, told them Flight 191 would have an engine failure in March 1974, that they needed to inspect the aircraft immediately. They dismissed me. The Silver Bridge lunatic, calling with another crazy prediction. March 3rd, 1974. Flight 191 lost an engine on takeoff. The plane crashed. 78 people died. The moth wings kept coming. Before every disaster. Floods, fires, building collapses. Each time, I'd call authorities. Sometimes they listened. I saved over 200 people from a hotel fire in 1976, convinced them to evacuate based on a tip. But usually, they didn't listen until after the bodies were counted. The last moth wing arrived in 1985. No note this time, just the wing, gray and ghostly. I knew what it meant. 2 weeks later, I had a heart attack. Ruth found me at my desk surrounded by newspaper clippings of all the disasters I'd predicted. The moth wings were pinned to the wall behind me, like a butterfly collection. 43 disasters. I'd been right 43 times out of 57 warnings. That's hundreds of people who lived because I was willing to be called crazy. The autopsy showed something the doctors couldn't explain. My eyes had changed, developed a crystalline structure in the retinas that shouldn't exist in human tissue. The structure was similar to what's found in moths, compound eyes that can see wavelengths of light humans can't normally perceive. I was changing, becoming more able to see the way the creature saw. Point Pleasant built a Mothman statue in 2003. They have a museum now, an annual festival. Tourists come to take pictures, buy t-shirts, treat it all like a fun story. But it's not a story. The creature is real. I saw it. It showed me things that came true. And it's still out there, trying to warn us about disasters we refuse to prevent. If you see something with glowing red eyes, watching you from the darkness, something too large, something with wings, don't run. Don't assume you're crazy. Listen, because it's not there to hurt you. It's trying to show you something terrible that hasn't happened yet, something you might be able to stop. The tragedy isn't the creature. The tragedy is that we ignore the warnings. We call the messengers crazy, and then we count the bodies and say nobody could have known. But somebody did know. I knew. And I tried. God knows I tried. If you see it, tell everyone. Scream from rooftops if you have to. They'll mock you. They'll call you insane. But if you save even one person, it's worth it. Every single person you save is worth being called crazy for the rest of your life. Trust me on that. I learned it the hard way. The Mothman is still out there, still watching, still trying to warn us. Next time you see those red eyes in the dark, I hope you'll listen better than they listen to me. My name is Robert Driscoll, but everyone calls me Bobby. I've been a forest ranger in the New Jersey Pine Barrens for 21 years. My father did this job for 30 years before me, and his father before him. The Driscolls have been watching over these woods since the 1920s. I'm 47 now, married to Sarah, and we have 3 daughters. I live in a small house just outside Wharton State Forest, about 10 minutes from the Batstow River. Every morning I wake up to the smell of pine trees and the sound of birds. It's a good life, quiet, predictable. My job is mostly fire prevention and taking care of historical sites. The Pine Barrens has over 1 million acres of forest, and hidden in there are ghost towns from the colonial days, places where people used to make iron in big furnaces. Now they're just ruins covered in vines. I manage controlled burns to prevent wildfires, help lost hikers, and give tours to school kids who want to learn about history. Growing up here, I heard all the stories. Every kid in South Jersey knows about the Jersey Devil. The legend says that back in 1735, a woman named Mother Leeds had 13 kids. When the 13th was born, she cursed it, saying, "Let this one be a devil." The baby supposedly transformed into a monster with wings and hooves, then flew up the chimney and disappeared into the Pine Barrens. People claimed to see it for hundreds of years after that. In 1909, there were mass sightings all across South Jersey. Newspapers went crazy with it. Farmers said it killed their chickens and livestock. Schools closed. People were terrified. But I never believed any of it. Not really. My dad used to laugh about it. Good for tourism, he'd say. Keeps the gift shops in business. I figured people were seeing sandhill cranes, tall birds with long necks that look strange when you catch them in the dark, or maybe owls. The woods play true. Ick's on your mind at night, especially if you're already scared. I'd been on hundreds of search and rescue operations. I'd seen bear attacks, helped people who broke their legs miles from any road, found lost children crying in the dark. But I'd never seen anything I couldn't explain. The Pine Barrens was dangerous, sure. You could get lost easy, and there were places where the cedar swamps could swallow you up if you weren't careful. But it was a natural danger, not supernatural. October 1981 was warm that year, unseasonably warm. The leaves should have been changing colors and falling, but they were still green on the trees. At night, thick fog rolled in from the swamps, making everything look like a dream. We were coming up on the new moon, and the woods got darker than usual. On October 23rd, I got a call on my radio around 9 a.m. It was dispatch, and the woman's voice sounded shaky. "Bobby, we need you at Cedar Bridge right away. There's been an incident with 2 hunters. State police are on their way." "What kind of incident?" I asked, already grabbing my keys. "One of them is dead. The other one, he's not making sense. He keeps screaming about something attacking them." I grabbed my gear and my dog Tucker, a German shepherd trained for search and rescue. He'd been with me for 6 years and never failed on a search. As I drove through the sandy back roads, I tried to imagine what happened. Hunter accident, probably. Someone shot their buddy by mistake and panicked. It happened sometimes, though not often. When I arrived at Cedar Bridge, there were already 3 state police cars there. I saw officers standing around looking uncomfortable, and one of them was throwing up in the bushes. That made my stomach tighten. These were experienced cops. What could make them react like that? Sergeant Mike Torres walked over to me. We'd worked together on search operations before. His face was pale. "Bobby, I've been doing this job for 15 years, he said quietly. "I've never seen anything like this." "Show me," I said. He led me down a narrow trail into the woods. Tucker walked beside me, but I noticed his ears were flat against his head. That was wrong. Tucker loved the woods. He should have been excited, nose to the ground, ready to work. We walked for about 5 minutes, and then I saw it. Dennis Shaw was hanging from a tree branch about 8 feet off the ground. His body was torn open from chest to stomach, and his intestines were hanging out. 3 massive claw marks ran across his torso, parallel gashes, each about 18 inches long and 2 inches deep. His face was frozen in an expression of pure terror. I'd seen bear attacks before. This wasn't that. The claw marks were too clean, too deliberate, and bears don't hang their victims in trees like trophies. "Where's the other hunter?" I asked. "Paul Kowalski. We found him about an hour ago," Torres said. "He's alive, but Bobby, he's not really there anymore. Something broke inside his head." They had Paul Kowalski sitting in the back of an ambulance with a blanket wrapped around him. He was a big guy, probably 40 years old, looked like he worked construction. But right now, he was rocking back and forth like a little kid, staring at nothing. I sat down next to him. "Paul, my name is Bobby Driscoll. I'm a forest ranger. Can you tell me what happened?" His eyes slowly focused on me. His lips started moving. "Red eyes," he whispered. "Hooves. It had hooves, but it stood like a man. Wings. Big wings like a bat. It grabbed Dennis, lifted him right up into the air like he weighed nothing. Dennis was screaming, and then it laughed. Bobby, it laughed while it killed him. Paul, was it a bear? Maybe. No! He grabbed my arm with surprising strength. It wasn't a bear. It had a horse's face. A horse's face with teeth. And it spoke. It said, "Mine. This is mine." Then it looked right at me and it smiled. God help me, it smiled. And it flew away. The paramed boys. Ike's gave him a sedative and took him away. I stood there watching the ambulance drive off, trying to make sense of what he'd said. The man was in shock, traumatized. His mind was making up explanations for something terrible. But those claw marks. I went back to examine Dennis Shaw's body more carefully. The medical examiner had arrived, a woman named Dr. Chen, who I'd worked with before. "What are we looking at here?" I asked her. She shook her head slowly. "Honestly, if I had to guess, I'd say raptor talons, like an eagle or a hawk, but scaled up to an impossible size. Whatever made these marks had claws about 6 inches long, maybe longer. And look at this." She pointed to the tree branch Dennis was hanging from. "The bark is torn here, like something with incredible strength grabbed the branch and bent it. The wood fibers are compressed in a way I've only seen with industrial equipment." I looked around the immediate area. The forest was completely silent. In 21 years, I'd never heard the pine barrens this quiet. No birds, no insects, no rustling in the underbrush. Even the wind seemed to have stopped. Tucker refused to get out of my truck. He was whimpering with his tail tucked between his legs. This was a dog who'd tracked people through swamps, who'd found bodies in advanced decomposition, who'd never once hesitated to work. Now, he wouldn't leave the vehicle. I tried my radio to call back to the station. Static, loud, painful static with something underneath it. A high-pitched sound, almost like a horse screaming mixed with a woman's shriek. All 4 of our walkie-talkies were doing the same thing. The state police radios, too. "Equipment malfunction," Torres said, but he didn't sound convinced. "We found tracks near where Paul had been discovered. At first I thought they were deer tracks, cloven hooves, about 8 inches long. But then I noticed something wrong. There were only 2 tracks, not 4. 2. Like whatever made them had been standing on 2 legs. I took photographs and made plaster casts, my hands shaking slightly. There had to be a rational explanation. Maybe someone had killed Dennis with a weapon designed to look like claw marks. Maybe they'd worn some kind of fake hooves to leave confusing tracks. Maybe Paul had killed his friend and made up this crazy story. But deep down, in a place I didn't want to acknowledge, I remembered something. My grandfather's funeral, when I was 12 years old. My father had gotten very drunk that night, which wasn't like him. He'd pulled me aside and said, "Bobby, if you ever see something in these woods that doesn't make sense, something impossible, remember that your grandfather saw it too, and it didn't break him. Don't let it break you." I'd thought he was just grief-talking. Now I wasn't so sure. At 2 p.m., we found Paul Kowalski again. He'd escaped from the ambulance while they were stopped at a gas station. We discovered him curled up inside a hollow tree about a mile from where Dennis died. He was covered in dirt, fingernails broken and bleeding from clawing at the ground. When we pulled him out, he looked at me with completely empty eyes and said in a flat voice, "It's still watching. It never stops watching. It owns everything here. Everything." Then he started laughing. A high, broken laugh that made my skin crawl. They took him to psychiatric care. I later learned he never spoke another coherent sentence for the rest of his life. That evening I was sitting in my truck filling out paperwork when I smelled something strange. Sulfur, like rotten eggs, but stronger, more chemical. I looked around but couldn't see any source for it. The smell got stronger, making my eyes water. Then I heard it. Wing beats. Massive wing beats, like someone shaking out a huge canvas tarp. The sound came from directly above me. I looked up through the windshield and saw a shadow pass overhead, blocking out the fading sunlight. The wingspan was enormous. 12 feet, maybe 15. Way too big for any bird in New Jersey. The shadow circled once, and then I heard a shriek that made my teeth ache and my hands go numb. It was like a horse screaming, but mixed with metal scraping on metal and a woman's scream all at once. Then silence. I sat in my truck for 10 minutes, heart pounding, telling myself I'd seen a large bird, maybe a turkey vulture, maybe my eyes were playing tricks in the fading light. But I knew what I'd seen, and I knew it wasn't a bird. I should have gone home that night. Sarah was making dinner, and my daughters would want to hear about my day. But I couldn't stop thinking about those claw marks, those tracks, Paul's empty eyes. Instead, I drove to the ranger station and dug through the old files. If this had happened before, if my father and grandfather had seen something, there might be records. It took me 2 hours of searching before I found it, tucked in the back of a filing cabinet marked Historical Incidents, Classified. The file was from 1953, and it was marked in red ink. Do not share. State officials only. Inside were photographs. Black and white, faded but clear enough. The same claw marks on a tree. The same cloven hoof prints, 2 of them like something standing upright. A plaster cast of the tracks. And a photograph of something dark flying against a twilight sky, too blurry to make out details but clearly showing massive wings. The final page was a report written by my grandfather, Robert Driscoll, Sr. His handwriting was shaky. September 15, 1953. 2 hikers killed in Batstow area during new moon. Evidence suggests Jersey Devil legend has basis in fact. Entity demonstrated territorial behavior and extreme aggression. Victims were found drained of blood. Recommend immediate evacuation of Batstow historical area and closure of surrounding forest. Request. Denied by state officials. Ordered to see. Classify incident as bear attack. God forgive us for lying. My hands were trembling as I read it. My grandfather had seen this thing. He'd known the truth, and they'd forced him to hide it. There was a knock on the station door that made me jump. It was Elizabeth Montgomery, senior ranger, been working the Pine Barrens for 30 years. She was in her 60s now, tough as nails, didn't scare easy. Bobby, she said quietly, I heard about what happened today. We need to talk. She sat down across from me and saw the file open on the desk. Her face went pale. So you found it, she said. I was hoping you wouldn't have to. Elizabeth, what the hell is going on? She was quiet for a long moment, then said, This is the 3rd time in my career. 1953, I was a junior ranger, 22 years old. I saw the bodies, I saw the tracks, and I saw your grandfather's face when he came back from that scene. He was never the same after. 1971, same thing. 2 dead, same claw marks, same hoof prints. And now, 1981. Are you telling me? I'm telling you that the Jersey Devil is real, she said, looking me straight in the eye. And it kills during the new moon in October. Always has. Your grandfather knew. Your father knew. Now, you know. Before I could respond, the radio crackled to life. It was Steve Harrigan, the fire tower watchman about 5 miles east. His voice was panicked. Bobby, Elizabeth, anyone! Something just landed on my tower. I can see it through the window. Oh, Jesus Christ. It has a horse's face and wings like a bat, and it's looking right at me, and... The radio went dead. Elizabeth and I ran for our trucks. The drive to the fire tower took 15 minutes on the winding sandy roads. The whole time, I kept trying to raise Steve on the radio. Nothing but static with that awful shrieking sound underneath. When we arrived at the fire tower, the door was ripped off its hinges. Steel hinges, thick and strong, torn out of the metal frame and twisted like paper. There were deep gouges in the metal railing. 3 parallel marks like massive claws had gripped it. Steve Harrigan was gone. On the floor of the tower, we found his watch, his wallet, and a single feather. It was dark red, almost burgundy, and 18 inches long. The feather was still warm to the touch, and it smelled like sulfur. Elizabeth picked it up with shaking hands. "It took him," she whispered. "Just like 1953. It takes one. Always takes one." "We have to call this in," I said. "State police, FBI, I don't care. We need—" "They won't help," Elizabeth interrupted. "They didn't help in 53. They didn't help in 71. The state doesn't want people knowing there's something in these woods that can't be explained. Bad for tourism, bad for property values. They'll classify it as an accident and tell us to keep our mouths shut." I felt rage building in my chest. "So, we just let people die?" "We warn them," Elizabeth said firmly. "We close areas. We tell people to stay out during October new moons. We've been doing it for decades, Bobby. Why do you think there are so many restricted areas in the Pine Barrens? It's not all environmental protection. We're protecting people from something they can't understand." We heard it then, that same shriek from earlier, but closer, much closer. It echoed through the trees, making the metal tower vibrate. "We need to go," Elizabeth said. "Now." But before we could move, something hit the top of the tower with enormous force. The whole structure shook. I looked up and saw a shadow on the roof, large, moving. "Run!" Elizabeth shouted. We scrambled down the tower stairs. Behind us, I heard the metal roof peeling back like someone opening a tin can. Then the wing beats, huge, powerful, getting closer. We made it to my truck and I floored the gas pedal, tires spinning in the sand. In the rearview mirror, I saw something launch from the fire tower, something with wings spread wide, silhouetted against the stars. It followed us for about a mile, staying just above the treetops. Then, suddenly, it veered off and disappeared into the darkness. Elizabeth was crying. I'd never seen her cry before. "It's getting bolder," she said. "In 53, it stayed hidden. In 71, it only came out deep in the forest. But now, Bobby, it attacked a fire tower. It's not hiding anymore." We drove to the Batstow Village ruins, the old iron furnace site from colonial times. Elizabeth said we'd be safer in the open, where we could see it coming. We parked under the old furnace structure, a massive brick building that had been abandoned for over 100 years. "Your grandfather's journal," Elizabeth said. "Do you still have it?" "Journal? I didn't know he kept one." "He did. After 53, he wrote everything down. Your father kept it hidden. Check his old footlocker, the one in your garage." I called Sarah on the phone at the station, told her to go to the garage, find my father's old army footlocker, and look for a journal. She was confused, but did it. 20 minutes later, she called back. "Bobby, I found it. This is crazy. Your grandfather wrote about seeing something in the woods, something he called the devil. Should I read it to you?" "Yes, all of it." She read for 10 minutes. My grandfather's entries from 1947 to 1953. He'd seen it multiple times. Described it exactly like Paul Kowalski had. Horse face, bat wings, cloven hooves, standing upright like a man. He'd watched it kill a deer by grabbing it with 3 clawed hands and flying away with it. But there was one entry that made me stop breathing. December 1947. Met with Henry Matthews, last surviving member of the Batstow Ironworks family. He is 93 years old. He told me the truth about the Jersey Devil. In 1820, his grandfather made a compact with it. The creature is ancient, was here long before Europeans arrived. The Leeds family story is fiction to cover the truth. The creature agreed to leave humans alone if we maintained the forest and respected its territory. The iron founders forged a ceremonial ring from Batstow furnace iron and presented it to the creature as a symbol. Henry says the creature is intelligent, speaks English, and honors agreements, but it is also territorial and vicious to those who violate the compact. He warned me, never enter the deep forest during October new moons. That is when it hunts. The ring, I said to Elizabeth. Is it still here? She nodded slowly. I've seen it. It's in the old furnace built into the wall. Your grandfather showed it to me in 1953. He used it to ward the creature off, held it up, and reminded it of the agreement. We searched the ruins of the furnace building with our flashlights. The ring was exactly where Elizabeth remembered. A thick iron circle about 8 inches across, built into the brick wall at chest height. It was pitted with age, but still solid. I tried to pull it out, but it wouldn't budge. Then we heard the wing beats again. This time it was directly overhead, circling. The sulfur smell was overpowering. It's here, Elizabeth whispered. The creature descended from the sky and landed in the clearing 20 feet away from us. In the moonlight, I saw it clearly for the first time. It was 7 feet tall, standing upright on 2 legs that ended in cloven hooves. Its body was muscular and humanoid, covered in dark brown fur. The wings were enormous, 15 feet from tip to tip, leathery like a bat's. Its head was elongated like a horse's, but the proportions were wrong, predatory. Red eyes glowed in the darkness. When it opened its mouth, I saw rows of sharp teeth behind the horse-like lips. Its hands had 3 long fingers, each tipped with a curved talon. It looked at us, not like an animal looks at you, like a person looks at you, intelligent, aware. Driscoll, it said. Its voice was like metal grinding on stone, but the words were clear. It knew my name. 3rd generation, the creature continued. Your grandfather saw me. Your father saw me. Now you. This land is mine. Always has been. Always will be. Elizabeth stepped forward. We honor the compact, she shouted. We maintain the forest. We keep people out of your territory. The creature's head tilted, studying her. Then it moved, faster than anything that size should be able to move. It grabbed Elizabeth and launched into the air, wings beating powerfully. She screamed. They rose 20 feet, 30 feet. The creature's jaws opened wide, and it bit into her shoulder with a horrible crunching sound. Then it dropped her. Elizabeth hit the ground hard and didn't move. Blood spread across the dirt beneath her. The creature landed again and turned its red eyes on me. I ran to the furnace wall and grabbed the iron ring, pulling with all my strength. It came free, brick dust and old mortar falling away. The ring was heavy in my hands, solid iron, forged 200 years ago by men who knew the truth. I held it up. The compact holds, I shouted. We've kept our word. The founders made peace with you. The creature stepped closer. Its breath smelled like sulfur and rot. The compact, it said slowly. Yes, your kind keeps the forest, prevents the fires, turns away the developers. In return, I tolerate you. Then why, I demanded, my voice breaking, why kill Dennis Shaw? Why take Steve Harrigan? Why hurt Elizabeth? They violated, the creature said simply. The hunter killed 3 does last week in the deep forest, my forest, and left the bodies to rot. Waste, disrespect. The tower watcher threw trash from his station, cigarette butts in my territory, and she... It looked at Elizabeth's motionless body. She brought loggers to the western boundary last month, showed them where to cut. That was permitted logging, state approved. I do not recognize the state's authority here. The creature's voice was cold. I recognize the compact. The founders understood boundaries. You have forgotten. I looked at Elizabeth. She was breathing, barely. I had to get her help. What do you want? I asked. The creature cocked its horse-like head, sidering. Remember, it finally said. Remember that you are guests in my home. Remember that the compact requires respect, not just land management. Remember that I was here first, and I will be here last. It spread its wings. Tell your daughters, it said. 4th generation. Tell them the truth. No more lies. No more folklore. Truth. Then it launched skyward and disappeared into the night. I ran to Elizabeth. She was alive, but her arm was mangled, bone showing through torn flesh. I called for emergency services, applied pressure to the wound. and waited. While I waited, I looked up at the stars and realized something terrible. The Jersey Devil wasn't a mindless monster. It was an intelligent guardian that had been protecting this land for centuries, and we'd been violating our agreement with it, little by little, without even realizing. They found Steve Harrigan's body 2 days later, 3 miles from the fire tower. He was hanging in a tree, exactly like Dennis Shaw, completely drained of blood, skin pale as paper. The official report said Dennis Shaw and Steve Harrigan died in a tragic industrial accident at the Batstow Historical Site. Paul Kowalski was ruled mentally unstable due to trauma. Elizabeth Montgomery was medically retired after an injury from falling equipment. The area around Batstow was closed for 6 months for structural assessment. All the files were sealed. Elizabeth survived but lost her arm. She moved to Florida 6 months later and won't talk about what happened. When I called her last year, she just said, "Let it go, Bobby. Knowing the truth doesn't help anyone." But I can't let it go. I found more of my father's notes hidden in the attic. He'd seen the Jersey Devil in 1971, just like Elizabeth said. He wrote about how it had killed 2 teenagers who'd been starting fires in the deep forest for fun. The creature had carried them up into the sky and dropped them from 100 feet up. My father had nightmares for years after. That's why he drank sometimes. That's why he'd warn me about certain parts of the forest, with a look in his eyes that I never understood until now. I told Sarah everything. She didn't believe me at first, but I showed her the photographs, the journal entries, Elizabeth's injuries. Eventually, she accepted it. I told my daughters, too. They're older now, 16, 14, and 12. I showed them the boundaries on a map, the areas where they must never go during October, especially during the new moon. I told them about the compact, about respecting the forest, about the price of violation. My oldest daughter asked, "Why doesn't someone just hunt it? Kill it?" I thought about those red eyes, that intelligence, that ancient presence. "Because it's not an animal," I said. "It's something else, something that's been here longer than us. And maybe it has a right to defend its home." Paul Kowalski died in 1993, still in psychiatric care. He never spoke again after that day. But the nurses said he used to stare out the window at night, especially during new moons in October, and tears would run down his face. I've been a ranger for 28 years now. I enforce the restricted areas more strictly than ever. When people ask why they can't hike certain trails, I tell them it's for environmental protection. But really, I'm protecting them from the truth. Last October, during the new moon, I was doing a night patrol near Batstow. The woods were dead silent, and I smelled sulfur. I looked up and saw a shadow circling overhead, massive wings silhouetted against the stars. I held up the iron ring that I now keep on a chain around my neck. The shadow circled once more, then flew away. The compact still holds. Barely. If you're planning to visit the Pine Barrens, I need you to understand something. If you smell sulfur with no source, turn back immediately. If you hear horse-like screaming at night, get in your car and leave. If you see large cloven hoofprints too, head only show 2 feet instead of 4, run. And during October new moons, especially between sunset and sunrise, stay out of the deep forest entirely. The government knows about things like this. They have protocols, classification systems, containment procedures. Rangers like me are the buffer between the supernatural and the public. We keep people out of certain areas not because of environmental protection, but because we're protecting people from things they can't comprehend. Things that were here long before us and will be here long after. The Jersey Devil is real. It has been real for 300 years, and it's still out there, watching over its territory, enforcing the compact that most people don't even know exists. My daughter Emily is studying to be a forest ranger. She'll be the 4th generation of Driscolls to protect these woods. I'm teaching her everything my father taught me, everything my grandfather learned the hard way. Last week, she asked me, "Dad, are you scared of it?" I thought about that for a long time before answering. "Yes," I said. "But I also respect it. Fear and respect, sometimes they're the same thing." I still wake up sometimes hearing wing beats overhead. I still smell sulfur in my dreams. And every October, when the new moon comes around, I make sure I know exactly where my family is. Because the truth is this: we don't own the Pine Barrens. We never have. We're just allowed to live here, as long as we remember the rules. And the Jersey Devil is making sure we never forget. My name is Thomas Hawthorne, and I need to tell you something before we go any further. What I'm about to share with you is the reason I quit being a ranger in 1977. It's why I never went back into those woods. And honestly, it's why I still sleep with the lights on sometimes. I spent 14 years as a ranger in Gifford-Pinchot National Forest up in Washington State. Before that, I was a Marine. I've seen combat. I've seen men die. I thought I knew what fear was. I was wrong. People always asked me about Sasquatch. Every single camping trip, someone would bring it up around the fire. "Hey, Ranger Tom, you ever see Bigfoot out there?" They'd laugh, expecting me to tell some spooky story. But I never had one to tell. 20 years of camping and hunting, 14 years working in those mountains, I never saw anything I couldn't explain. Bears making weird sounds, elk rubbing trees, shadows playing tricks. That's all it ever was. My wife Sarah used to tease me about it. "For someone who lives in the woods, you're awfully practical," she'd say. She died in 1975, car accident on the highway. After that, the forest became my escape. My two girls, Katie and Emma, they were 8 and 11 back then. When I wasn't with them, I was in those trees. The quiet helped, or at least I thought it did. October 24th, 1977. That's when everything changed. 3 college kids went missing. Biology students from the university. Smart kids who knew what they were doing out there. Rebecca Mills, David Chen, and Jennifer Walsh. They were studying elk migration patterns for their senior project. They'd checked in with us 4 days earlier, heading into the Pine Ridge sector, 40 miles from the nearest road. Real deep wilderness. When they missed their check-in, I knew something was wrong. These weren't stupid kids. They had the right gear, the right training. Rebecca's dad called us, voice shaking. She always calls. Always, something's wrong. I took Michael DeWitt with me. He was 26, been a ranger for 3 years. Good kid. His grandmother was Yakima tribe, and he grew up hearing all the old stories. We used to joke about it. He'd tell me about the Seatic, these stick giants his grandmother talked about. "They steal your voice," he'd say with a grin. "Use it to trick other people." "Sounds like a good way to scare kids into staying close to camp," I'd tell him. "Maybe," he'd say. But my grandmother never lied to me about anything else. We packed for 4 days and headed out. The weather was turning. Early snow had already hit the high elevations, and temperatures were dropping fast at night. 20 degrees, maybe lower. If those kids were hurt and couldn't move, we didn't have much time. The first day was normal. We made good progress, following their planned route. Michael talked about his girlfriend, how he was planning to propose at Christmas. I told him about Katie's school play, how Emma was learning guitar. Regular stuff. The forest felt like it always did. Alive, busy, full of small sounds. We found their camp on the second day, just before noon. That's when I felt it for the first time. Something wrong. The tents were still standing. The food was hung properly in the trees, untouched. Their sleeping bags were laid out inside like they'd just stepped away for a minute. Coffee pots sat on the fire ring, cold. Everything looked normal. Except they were gone. "Maybe they went for a hike?" Michael suggested, but his voice was uncertain. I checked the perimeter, found 3 sets of footprints leading away from camp, heading uphill into the thick trees. We followed them for maybe 200 yards. Then they just stopped. Not like they'd gotten to rocks or hard ground. They stopped mid-step. 3 sets of prints, all ending at the same T. I'm on a flat stretch of rocky outcrop. Like they'd been picked up. "That's not possible," Michael said. I didn't answer because I was noticing something else. The forest had gone completely silent. No birds. No squirrels chattering. No insects buzzing. No wind moving through the trees. Nothing. In 14 years, I'd never experienced that, ever. There's always something making noise in the woods. Always. "Mike," I said quietly. "You hear that?" "Hear what?" "Exactly." We stood there for a moment, both of us listening to nothing. The silence pressed against my ears like water pressure. It felt heavy, wrong. Michael pulled out his radio to check in with base. The static crackled loud in that dead quiet. Then something else came through. Voices, maybe, talking backward. The words were there but reversed, like someone had recorded them and played them in rewind. "What the hell?" Michael turned the dial, but the sound continued for a few more seconds before cutting to normal static. "Equipment malfunction," I said, not believing it. That's when I saw the blood. The blood wasn't on the ground. It was on the trees. 15 feet up the trunk of a massive Douglas fir, someone had splattered blood in a long smear. It continued to the next tree, same height, then the next. "It's like something was bleeding while it moved through the canopy," Michael whispered. My throat went dry. Nothing does that. Nothing big enough to bleed that much. But we followed it anyway. What else could we do? The blood trail led us uphill for almost half a mile. The silence stayed with us the whole way. Our boots on the ground sounded too loud. Our breathing sounded like wind in a tunnel. And that was it. Just us. The trail ended at a massive old-growth fir. Michael pointed up. Rebecca Mills was sitting in the fork of the tree, 30 feet above us. She looked almost peaceful at first, sitting up there like she was resting. But as my eyes adjusted, I saw the details. Her neck was bent at an angle that made my stomach turn. Broken. Her body had been arranged carefully. Pussy one like someone had taken time to make her comfortable. Her face was frozen in terror, eyes wide open, and her mouth, her mouth was stretched impossibly wide, jaw dislocated, hanging open like a snake preparing to swallow something. "Get her down," I heard myself say. "We need to get her down." Michael just stared. "How did she get up there?" "I don't know, but—" "No, Tom. How?" "She couldn't climb. Her neck is broken. Someone put her there." He was right. I didn't want him to be right, but he was. And that's when I noticed her tongue was missing. Michael got on the radio. His hands were shaking as he called it in. "Base, this is DeWitt. We found one of them. Rebecca Mills. She's deceased. We need backup and recovery team." The radio crackled. Normal static this time. Then, "Don't look up." Michael's voice, coming from the radio. But Michael hadn't said anything. We both stared at the radio. Then we looked at each other. "That wasn't me," Michael said. The radio spoke again in his voice. "Don't look up. Don't look up. Don't—" I grabbed the radio and shut it off. My heart was hammering. "We're leaving, right now." "What about—" "Now, Mike." But we both looked up anyway. We couldn't help it. Something was up there in the canopy. Something big. It moved between the trees, 30 feet above the ground. Bipedal. Covered in matted reddish-brown hair. But the proportions were all wrong. The arms reached between tree trunks that were 8 feet apart. Reached easily. Like you or I would spread our arms wide. It was matching our movements. When I stepped left, it moved left. When Michael backed up, it followed. We never saw its whole body. Just pieces. An arm here, a shoulder there. A flash of something that might have been a face in the shadows. "Run," I said. We ran. The forest exploded with sound. Not natural sound. The sound of something crashing through branks. He's above us, keeping pace. We sprinted downhill, branches whipping our faces. My lungs burned. Behind us, something roared. Not like a bear. Not like anything I'd ever heard. It sounded like a dozen voices screaming at once. We didn't stop until we hit the clearing near their camp, burst out of the trees and fell to our knees, gasping. The silence returned immediately, complete and total. "What was that?" Michael was crying. "What the fuck was that?" I didn't have an answer. We found David Chen 10 minutes later. His body was arranged in the center of a small clearing maybe 100 yards from the camp. At first I thought he was sleeping. Then I got closer. His torso had been torn open. Chest cavity empty. The organs had been removed carefully, surgically almost, and arranged in a perfect circle around his body. Heart, lungs, liver, intestines. All laid out with precision. Michael made a choking sound. "That's a warning symbol. Old Yakama. My grandmother showed me once in a book. It means claimed territory. It means Siatic. That's just a story. Does this look like a story to you?" I couldn't argue. Nothing about this was natural. Nothing about this made sense. We set up an emergency shelter as the sun started to set. Neither of us wanted to stay, but we couldn't hike in the dark, not with that thing out there. We'd radio for helicopter extraction at first light. Michael built a fire. We didn't talk much. What was there to say? Around midnight, we heard the voices. They came from just outside the firelight. Conversations. Normal conversations. It took me a minute to recognize them. They were our conversations from earlier in the day. Michael talking about his girlfriend. Me talking about Katie's school play. Word for word, exactly as we'd said them. But we were both sitting right here, silent. The playback continued for maybe 10 minutes. Then it changed. Screaming. A woman screaming. "Help me! Please, someone help me! I'm hurt!" Jennifer, the third student. Michael jumped up. "That's her! She's alive!" I grabbed his arm. "Wait! She's alive! Tom! That's not her. Listen to it. Really listen." The screaming was perfect. Too perfect. Like a recording. It repeated the same phrases in the same order. "Help me! Please, someone help me! I'm hurt!" Michael pulled away from me. "I can't just leave her." "Mike, don't—" But he was already running toward the sound, flashlight bobbing in the darkness. I heard him crashing through the brush. Then his flashlight stopped moving. "Mike!" I called. Silence. "Michael!" Then I heard him scream. It went on for a long time, longer than seemed possible, and then it just stopped. I spent the rest of the night by the fire, gun in my hand, listening to the silence. Dawn came slowly. The light filtered through the trees like it was afraid to arrive. I had to find Michael. I knew what I'd find, but I had to look anyway. I found him a quarter mile from camp, suspended between two trees. His intestines had been stretched between the trunks like rope. He was still barely alive when I reached him. His eyes found mine. His lips moved. I leaned close. "It learned my voice," he whispered. Blood bubbled at the corner of his mouth. "Used my voice. On the radio. Called for backup." My blood went cold. "What?" "Called them. Told them we're fine. Bringing everyone down." His eyes were glazing over. "It's a trap. Mike, stay with me." But he was gone. I checked his radio. It was still on. I rewound the log. There it was. Michael's voice from 3 hours ago. "Base, this is DeWitt. False alarm. Everything's fine. Found all 3 students. They just wandered off. Bringing everyone down now. Over." A rescue team was on their way. Walking right into this. I had to warn them. But the only place my radio would reach was the ridgeline, 5 miles straight up the mountain. 5 miles of steep climbing through dense forest with that thing somewhere in the trees. I grabbed my pack and started moving. The silence followed me like a living thing. Every step I took sounded like thunder. My breathing echoed back at me from the trees. But there was nothing else. No birds, warning each other about the predator moving through their territory. No small animals scurrying away. Nothing. I saw it for the first time, really saw it, about an hour into my climb. I'd stopped to catch my breath on a fallen log. When I looked up, it was standing 30 yards away between 2 massive trees. 9 feet tall, maybe more. covered in reddish-brown hair that was matted with dirt and what looked like blood. The arms hung down past its knees. Too long. Impossibly long. The shoulders were massive, hunched forward. But the face. God. The face. Most of it was hidden behind the hair. But I could see the eyes. Yellow. Like a wolf's eyes in lamplight. And the jaw. It hung open too wide, just like Rebecca's had. Unhinged. We stared at each other. I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. Then it made a sound. Thomas? My wife's voice. Sarah's voice. Perfect. Exactly as I remembered it. Thomas, I'm so tired. Why don't you rest? Just for a minute. I raised my gun with shaking hands. Don't leave the girls, Thomas. They need you. Just rest. I fired. The shot echoed through the dead forest. I saw the bullet punch through its chest. No blood. No reaction. Just a hole that closed back up like water smoothing over. Katie and Emma are waiting, Thomas. Put down the gun. I fired again and again, emptied half the magazine into it. It took a step forward. I ran. Behind me I heard it following. Not running, just walking. Heavy footfalls that shook the ground. And voices. So many voices now. Sarah, my girls, Michael, Rebecca, David. All of them talking at once, overlapping, calling my name. I didn't stop. I couldn't. The climb became a blur. Branches tore at my face. Rocks shifted under my boots. My lungs burned. The voices followed, sometimes close, sometimes distant, but always there. Daddy, where are you? Emma's voice. Perfect. We're scared, Daddy. Katie now. I knew we. Rent real. I knew it. But hearing their voices in this place, scared and calling for me, it took everything I had to keep moving forward. The terrain got steeper. I was using my hands now, pulling myself up between rocks. The thing was still following. I could hear it moving through the trees above me, using the canopy like a highway. I pulled myself over a ledge and stopped. The ridgeline was maybe a quarter mile ahead. I could see it through the trees, open sky, sunlight. That's when I heard the voices change. They all started screaming, every voice it had stolen, all at once. A chorus of agony and terror that made my teeth ache. The sound seemed to come from everywhere. Then they started talking backward. Dozens of voices speaking words in reverse, overlapping, building into this horrible symphony of wrongness. And through it all, one voice came clear. My own voice. I'm bringing them down. Everything's fine. The thing was still using Michael's recording, still calling that rescue team. I had to reach the ridge. I pushed forward, legs shaking with exhaustion. The voices followed. The thing followed. I broke through the tree line onto the ridge just as the sun hit full strength. Bright, beautiful daylight. I'd never been so grateful to see the sun. I fumbled for my radio. Base, this is Hawthorne. Do not respond to DeWitt's last call. Repeat, do not send team. It's a trap. Multiple casualties. Need immediate. The radio died in my hand. Battery gone. Behind me, branches snapped. Something was coming through the trees. I turned. It stepped out of the shadows into full daylight for the first time. In the full light of day, it was worse than I'd imagined. The creature stood at least 9 feet tall, but it was the build that was most wrong. The torso was massive, barrel-chested, but it narrowed at the waist in a way that looked almost insect-like. The arms were as long as I was tall, ending in hands that had too many fingers, 7 on each hand, all tipped with black claws. The hair was reddish-brown and matted, but underneath I could see old scars, hundreds of them. This thing was ancient. It had survived things that should have killed it. But the face was the worst part. The eyes were set too far apart, yellow and intelligent. Too intelligent. This wasn't an animal. The nose was flat, nearly flush with the face. And the mouth. The jaw unhinged like a snake's, dropping down to reveal rows of teeth that looked almost human except for the 4 longer fangs. and it was making sounds. All the voices it had stolen were coming out at once. Men, women, children. Some speaking normally, some screaming, some sobbing. All of them pouring from that open mouth in an impossible chorus. I heard Sarah. I heard Michael. I heard the 3 students. I heard voices I didn't recognize, dozens of them. How many people had it taken over the years? The thing took a step forward. The sunlight didn't seem to hurt it like I'd hoped. It just made it easier to see how truly wrong it was. I reached for my gun, knowing it wouldn't help. I'd already shot it. The bullets had done nothing. It opened its mouth wider. The voices stopped. Then it spoke with just one voice. My voice. Should have stayed away, Thomas. This forest isn't yours. Hearing my own words come from that thing made me want to vomit. I backed toward the edge of the ridge. Behind me was a steep ravine, maybe 200 feet down. In front of me was this creature. How many? I asked. My real voice sounded weak compared to the version it used. It tilted its head, studying me. Then it spoke again in my voice. But the words weren't mine. 97 voices. Need 100. Need the old words. Need to call them back. The Yakima elders' stories. Michael's grandmother's warnings. They were all true. This thing was collecting voices to perform some kind of ritual, to call back more of its kind. You're not getting to 100, I said. It made a sound that might have been laughter. All 97 voices laughing at once. Then it lunged. I dove sideways. Those long arms swept through the space where I'd been standing. I rolled, came up running toward the edge. There was an emergency supply cache up here somewhere. I'd stocked it myself 2 years ago. The creature followed. It moved faster in the open, loping on all fours like a gorilla, but wrong, all wrong, too fast. I found the cache, a metal box bolted to a rock. I yanked it open. Flares, a first aid kit, a flare gun. Behind me, the creature was closing in. I grabbed the flare gun, loaded it with shaking hands. It was 10 feet away when I turned and fired. The flare hit it square in the chest. The chemical fire exploded across its torso, white-hot magnesium burning at 3,000 degrees. The thing screamed. All 97 voices screaming at once. It staggered backward, clawing at the burning flare stuck to its chest. I didn't wait. I ran for the other side of the ridge, toward the trail where the rescue team would be coming up. Behind me, the screaming continued. Then it changed. The voices started playing backward again, faster and faster, building to this horrible crescendo. I reached the other side of the ridge just as I saw them, 6 rangers hiking up the trail, half a mile down. I fired another flare into the sky. The rescue signal. They stopped, looked up. I waved frantically, pointing back the way they'd come. They needed to run. They needed to... Something grabbed my ankle. I fell hard. The wind knocked out of me. I looked back. The creature had followed. The flare had burned out, leaving a blackened patch on its chest that was already healing. It pulled me backward with one hand, that impossible strength dragging me across the rocks like I weighed nothing. I kicked at it, clawed at the ground. It didn't matter. It pulled me to the edge of the ravine, held me there, dangling over the drop. Those yellow eyes stared into mine. Then it spoke in my voice one last time. You'll do. It opened its mouth wide. That jaw unhinged completely. I could see down its throat, could see something moving in there, something that glowed faintly in the darkness. It was going to take my voice, add me to its collection. I stopped fighting. Let my body go limp. The creature pulled me closer, that mouth coming toward my face. Then I grabbed the last flare from my pocket and jammed it into that open mouth. I didn't have the gun, couldn't light it, but the creature's throat was hot. I'd felt the heat coming from it. Hot enough, maybe. The flare ignited. The creature's head snapped back. It released me, and I fell, tumbling down the ravine, hitting rocks and trees, the world spinning. I remember the sound it made as I fell, all those voices screaming backward, faster and faster, until they rose into a frequency that made my ears bleed. Then I hit something hard and the world went black. I woke up in a hospital 3 days later. They told me the rescue team found me at the bottom of the ravine with a broken leg, 3 cracked ribs, and a concussion. They said I was lucky to be alive. They asked me what happened up there. I told them the truth. All of it. They listened politely, made notes. Then they gave me the official report. 4 deaths from exposure and wildlife attack. The students had gotten separated in the storm, became disoriented. Michael DeWitt had tried to help them and been killed by a bear. I'd fallen during the rescue attempt. Wildlife attack. That's what the file said. I was transferred to a desk job as soon as I could walk. I didn't argue. I put in my resignation 6 months later, took early retirement, moved to Seattle with my girls. But before I left, a Yakima elder came to see me, Michael's grandmother. She was old, ancient, with eyes that had seen too much. She sat beside my hospital bed and didn't say anything for a long time. Then, "Did you see it?" "Yes." "Did you hear the voices?" "Yes." She nodded slowly. "Siatik, I'd warn people, tried to keep them away from the sacred grounds, but nobody listens to the old stories anymore. It said it needed 100 voices to call the others back." Her face went pale. "How many did it have?" 97. She closed her eyes. When she opened them, they were wet. The old ones have been hiding for a long time, waiting for the right moment to return. That's what the stories say. 100 human voices speaking the old words would open the path. "It didn't get to 100, I said. "This time," she replied. She left after that. I never saw her again. The official investigation recovered Jennifer Walsh's body 3 weeks later. They found her 8 miles from the camp, hung in a tree. Medical examiners said she'd been drained of blood through 2 puncture wounds in her neck. The report mentioned it, but offered no explanation. They also found something else, something they didn't put in any report. One of the rangers told me privately, after a few drinks. They'd found recordings on Michael's radio, 10 minutes of audio from when I was supposedly calling for help from the ridge. But it wasn't me calling. It was just breathing, and underneath the breathing, voices speaking backward. The audio analysis team tried to reverse it, to hear what was being said. They couldn't. The words weren't in any language they recognized. I still have nightmares. Most nights, I hear my wife's voice calling to me from the dark. Sometimes it's my daughter's. Sometimes it's Michael, whispering his last words over and over. I never went back to those woods. I never will. But sometimes, late at night, I think about what that elder told me, about the old ones hiding, waiting, about how close that thing came to getting its 100th voice, and I count 97 voices when I left it on that ridge. Since then, there have been disappearances. 3 hiker in 1978, 2 more in 1979, 4 in 1981. I keep track. I can't help it. The count is at 96 now, maybe 97. I tell myself the thing died from that flare, that it burned up, or fell off the ridge, or crawled away to die somewhere in the deep woods. But I don't believe it. And I need you to know this, whoever's reading this. If you're hiking and the forest goes completely silent, and I mean nothing, not even wind, you leave immediately. Don't investigate. Don't wait to see what happens. Just go. And if you hear your own voice calling to you from the trees, you run and don't look back, because it already got close enough to steal it. My name is Douglas Merritt, and I'm the reason everyone knows about the stairs in the forest now. I'm also the reason we don't talk about what they're for, because I found out. I wish to God I hadn't. I've been a ranger for 16 years. Mark Twain National Forest in Missouri, Big Creek Wilderness Area. It's good work, quiet, honest. After what I saw in Korea, after watching Linda waste away in that hospital bed in '79, I needed quiet. My boys were grown and gone by then. The forest doesn't ask questions. It doesn't judge. It just is. Or at least, that's what I thought. September 14th, 1975. I remember the date because it was the day before my oldest boy's birthday, and I'd been planning to hike out early to make it to his dinner. Hot day, sticky. The kind where your shirt clings to your back and the bugs swarm around your face. I was doing routine trail maintenance on the Ridgeline Trail, about 35 miles from the station. That far out, you're really alone. Radio works maybe half the time in these hollows. One full day's hike to the nearest road. I'd been walking for about 3 hours, checking for fallen trees, marking erosion spots, standard stuff. Then I saw it, a staircase, just standing there in the middle of the forest. 20 steps going straight up to nothing. No house, no foundation, no ruins, just stairs. I stopped walking, stared at it. The thing looked brand new. Dark wood, hand-carved railings with these fancy Victorian swirls, fresh varnish that gleamed in the sunlight coming through the trees. Not a spot of rot, no moss, no insect damage. Perfect. I've seen a lot of weird things in 16 years. Bear cubs stuck in trees. Deer with their antlers locked together. Once found a kitchen sink in the middle of a creek, 5 miles from any road. But this was different. I walked around it slowly. The ground underneath was just normal forest floor. Leaf, cess, dirt, a few ferns. No sign anything had ever been built here. No old nails, no concrete, no brick. I pulled out my map. According to every record from 1890 to now, nothing had ever been built on this ridgeline. No homesteads, no hunting cabins, nothing. I touched the railing, warm from the sun, solid, real. My son Tommy had made me listen to this radio show a few months back. Some guy talking about weird things in national parks. He'd mentioned stairs, said people kept finding staircases in the middle of nowhere, standing all by themselves. I'd laughed it off. Tommy was into all that paranormal stuff. UFOs, Bigfoot, the whole deal. I figured it was all nonsense. But here I was, looking at one. I took photos, marked the position on my map, continued my patrol, figuring I'd report it when I got back. Probably some old structure that had rotted away, leaving just the stairs. Had to be. 1 mile further up the trail, I found another one. This one was different. Stone steps, modern-looking concrete. Also perfect. Also completely alone in the forest. Also impossible. Then another. Metal this time, industrial style, like from a factory. Rusty orange color, but no actual rust when I touched it. Then another. Ancient-looking wood, almost black with age, except it wasn't aged at all. Just looked old. My hands started shaking. I pulled out my radio. "Station, this is Merritt. You there, Martin?" Static. Then my supervisor's voice crackled through. "Doug, that you?" "Yeah." "Hey, I'm finding these stairs out here, just standing in the forest. No buildings, nothing, just stairs. You ever heard of anything like this?" Long pause. Too long. "You finding stairs out there, Doug?" Something in his voice made my stomach drop. "How did you know what I was going to say?" "Everyone finds them. In 16 years, how did nobody tell you?" "Tell me what?" "Don't touch them. Don't climb them. Mark their locations and move on. That's protocol." "What protocol?" "Martin, what are you talking about?" Another pause. I could hear him breathing. "The ones who climbed them didn't come." "Back down, Doug." I should have listened. Should have marked those stairs and hiked straight back to the station. But I'd been a soldier. I'd raised 3 boys on my own. I'd held my wife's hand while cancer ate her from the inside. I wasn't scared of some stairs in the woods. That was stupid. Pride is always stupid. I kept walking. The trail curved around a limestone bluff, then dropped into a small hollow. And that's when I found the clearing. 6 staircases, all arranged in a circle, all different. One looked like it came from an old plantation house, wide, curved, white paint peeling. One was brick, narrow, Victorian. One was steel and glass, modern as yesterday. One was rough-cut logs, pioneer style. One was marble, fancy as a courthouse. One was just plain wood planks, simple and worn. They stood there like silent sentinels, arranged in a perfect circle about 30 feet across. In the center was a shallow depression in the ground. I walked closer. My boots crunched on the leaves. Everything felt too quiet suddenly. No birds, no insects, just the sound of my own breathing. In the depression, I saw bones, small fragments scattered in the dirt, part of a rib cage, what looked like finger bones, and cloth, rotted pieces of fabric in different styles. Denim, something that might have been cotton, a scrap of leather. My heart started pounding. I knelt down, looking closer. That's when I saw the journal. It was under a piece of bark, protected from the weather. Brown leather cover. Pages stained and wrinkled but readable. I picked it up with shaking hands. The first page said, "My name is Patrick Malone. If you're reading this, I'm probably dead. I climbed the stairs 3 days ago." I flipped through the pages. The handwriting got messier as it went on. I can't find my way back. I've been walking for 2 days. The trees look the same but different. They move when I'm not looking. I know that sounds crazy, but I swear they do. I'm so thirsty, but when I drink from the creek, the water tastes like metal and makes my stomach hurt. Next page. Something is watching from the top of the stairs. I saw it this morning. I don't remember seeing a top when I climbed up. The stairs just ended in air. But now there's a platform up there and something is standing on it. It's tall, too tall. I can't look at it directly. It makes my eyes hurt. Next page, just a few words. It knows my name. It's calling me. Patrick. Patrick. Come back to the stairs, Patrick. I don't want to, but my legs are moving. The entry ended there. Brown stains on the paper that looked like dried blood. The date at the top of the journal said, June 1923, 52 years ago. I stood up fast, backing away from the depression. The journal fell from my hands. I needed to get out of this clearing. Needed to... Footsteps above me. I looked up. A woman stood on top of the marble staircase, 15 feet in the air. She wore a dress from the 1950s, blue with white polka dots, the skirt full and proper. Her hair was curled perfectly. She stared down at me. I could see through her. Just barely, but I could see the trees behind her, through her body. Her mouth opened. She screamed. No sound came out, just her face twisting in silent terror. Then she jumped. But she didn't fall. She just vanished in midair, like she'd never been there at all. My radio crackled. "Douglas, this is Martin. Where are you exactly?" I grabbed for it with numb hands. "Big Creek Ridge, mile marker 23. "No, you're not." "What?" "Check your GPS." I pulled out my GPS unit. The screen was glitching, showing 7 different locations at once. All of them wrong. All of them miles apart. I pulled out my compass. The needle spun in wild circles, never settling. "Martin, my equipment's going haywire. Something's wrong with..." "Doug?" His voice was tight, scared. "Did you climb any of the stairs?" "No, I didn't touch them." "Are you sure?" "Think carefully." I opened my mouth to say yes, I'm sure. But I stopped, because suddenly I wasn't sure. Had I climbed one? I remembered walking around them, looking at them, taking photos. But had I stepped on one? Just one step to test if it was solid. I couldn't remember. "Oh God," I whispered. "I think I might have." "Then you're not in the forest anymore, Doug. You're in the between." I ran. Didn't matter which direction. Just away from that clearing. Away from those stairs and that depression full of bones and that impossible woman who screamed without sound. The forest looked the same, but felt wrong. The trees were taller, or maybe I was smaller. The sky was darker, even though my watch said it was only 2 in the afternoon. Every sound felt muffled, like I was hearing everything through water. My nose started bleeding. Just suddenly, blood dripping onto my shirt. I wiped it away and kept running. I had to find the staircase I'd climbed. Had to find my way back. Think, Douglas. Think. Which one had you touched? But I couldn't remember. It was like trying to remember a dream. The harder I tried, the more it slipped away. I ran for what felt like an hour. My lungs burned. My legs ached. Finally, I had to stop. I bent over, hands on my knees, gasping for air. That's when I realized I was back in the clearing. The same 6 staircases in a circle. But now there were 12, and the depression in the center was bigger. More bones, more scraps of clothing. A backpack that looked like it was from the 1970s, one of those metal frame ones. A rifle that might have been from the Civil War. A child's shoe, tiny, with a button strap. I wanted to scream, but my throat was too dry. Someone was sitting on the bottom step of the wooden staircase. A man, young, maybe late 20s. He wore hiking clothes, bell-bottom jeans, a faded green jacket. His skin was gray, mummified, but perfectly preserved, like he'd been freeze-dried. His eyes were open, staring at nothing. In his hand was a piece of paper. I didn't want to get closer. Everything in me said to run again. But I needed to know, needed to understand what was happening. I walked to him on shaking legs, took the paper from his stiff fingers. My name is Gerald Hughes. I've been walking for 3 days. The water here isn't water. The air isn't air. I'm dying, but I can't die. It won't let me die quickly. It takes turns showing you. At sunset. Whatever you do, don't look at sunset. If you look at it directly, you'll never leave. I'm sorry I looked. I'm so sorry The writing stopped. I turned the paper over. One more sentence, barely readable. It's not stairs, it's a door. And something is coming through. I checked my watch. 4:47 p.m. The sun would set in about an hour. Gerald Hughes. The name was familiar. I tried to remember. Then it hit me. Missing person case from 1971. Young man from St. Louis went hiking in Mark Twain Forest, never came back. They'd searched for weeks. He'd been sitting here for 4 years. I heard breathing behind me. I turned slowly. Every staircase now had someone standing on it, or something. They looked human from far away. But as I stared, I could see they weren't quite right. Arms too long, heads tilted at angles that would break a neck. Some of them were transparent. Some were too solid, too real, more real than reality itself. They all stared at me. Then one of them moved. It didn't walk down the stairs. It just appeared at the bottom, like frames of a film had been cut out. Too tall, maybe 8 feet. Its body was human-shaped, but the proportions were wrong. Joints bent backward. No face, just a smooth surface like skin pulled too tight. The smooth surface reflected my own face back at me, but distorted, screaming. Even though I wasn't screaming. Yet. I backed away. It followed. Not walking, just appearing close, or closer. Each time I blinked, it was in a new position. My back hit a tree. It was right in front of me now, that smooth, knot face inches from mine. I could see myself in it. Not my real face, but my face twisted in terror I hadn't felt yet, like it was showing me my future. Then it tilted its head, and I heard a voice that wasn't a voice, more like words formed directly in my brain. You climbed, now you stay, now you build. It reached for me with hands that had too many fingers. I dodged sideways and ran again. Behind me, I heard a sound like reality tearing, a deep, grinding screech that made my teeth ache and my eyes water. The trees around me started growing stairs, bursting out of their trunks like tumors. Wood stairs, metal stairs, stone stairs, all erupting from the bark, reaching upward, trying to block my path. I dodged and weaved, climbing over roots, crashing through underbrush. I could see a ridge ahead, higher ground. I ran toward it with everything I had left. I made it to the ridge just as the sun touched the horizon. The sky turned the wrong colors, purple and green where it should be orange and red. The clouds moved in reverse, flowing backward like a film rewinding. Below me, the forest stretched out forever, too far. I should be able to see Highway 49 from here, should see the ranger station, should see something familiar. Instead, I saw stairs. Hundreds of them. Thousands. Rising out of the trees like a forest of dead wood. And at the base of each one, something lay crumpled. Bodies. People. Some were old, nothing but bones and cloth. Some were newer. Some were moving, still alive, still trying to walk, still trying to find a way out. I saw a woman in a long dress walking in circles, the same 5-foot circle, over and over. The dress was from the 1890s. She'd been walking for almost 100 years. I saw a boy, maybe 10 years old, calling for his mother. His clothes said 1960s. He'd been calling for 15 years. I saw a man in a Civil War uniform, Confederate gray, still carrying his musket. He'd been here for over a century. Hey, we're all trapped, all dying so slowly. And every time one of them finally died, a new staircase grew. You build stairs with their deaths, I said out loud. Every staircase is a grave. The stairkeeper appeared on the ridge beside me. I didn't look at it directly. Gerald's note had said not to look at sunset. But in my side vision, I could see it spread its arms wide. Reality cracked around it like glass with 1,000 fractures. 12 more staircases appeared all at once, bursting from the ground. It was showing off, proud of its collection. I understood then. This thing, it lived between worlds, between the real and the unreal. The stairs were anchors, doorways. Every person who climbed gave it more power, more connection to the real world, more ability to reach through and grab others. It fed on death, slow death, the fear and pain of people dying lost and confused in this place that wasn't quite a place. And it used that energy to build more stairs, more doors, more ways to catch more people. It had been doing this for hundreds of years, maybe thousands. The sun sank lower. The sky turned darker. The stairkeeper moved closer. I remembered Gerald's note. Don't look at sunset. If you look directly at it. I closed my eyes. The world went silent. Completely silent. Not even my heartbeat. Not even my breathing. Then I heard something. A grinding sound. Screaming. The sound of wood splintering and metal tearing and stone cracking. Reality itself breaking apart. I kept my eyes closed, even though every instinct screamed to open them. Even though I felt the stairkeeper right in front of me, so close I could feel cold radiating from where it stood. The grinding got louder. Louder. So loud I thought my skull would crack. Then it stopped. I opened my eyes. I was on the ground in the real forest. The normal forest. Sun was setting, the right colors this time, orange and red and gold. Beautiful. But I was bleeding. Nose, ears, eyes. Blood running down my face and neck, soaking my shirt. My head felt like it was splitting open. My vision was blurred, doubled, tripled. I could still see the shimmer in the air where the stairs had been. They were still there, just sideways to reality, existing in the same space, but not the same world. Behind me, the stairkeeper screamed. Not a sound, like anything human or animal. A sound like reality tearing, like the fabric of the world ripping open. It couldn't fully manifest without being watched. Couldn't exist completely in the real world, but it could reach through. The trees around me exploded with stairs. Dozens of them, all at once, growing from the trunks and the ground and the air itself, trying to trap me, trying to pull me back. I ran, climbed the ridge, slipped and fell and got back up and ran some more. 10 miles to the ranger station. I ran all night. Behind me, the screaming followed, the sound of something that shouldn't exist, enraged that I'd escaped. Dawn broke just as I collapsed outside the station. Martin found me lying in the dirt. I was bleeding from everywhere. Nose, ears, eyes, even my mouth. The doctor said later, it was like my body had been pressurized wrong. Like I'd been somewhere the air was different and my insides hadn't adjusted back yet. They kept me in the hospital for 2 weeks. severe dehydration, internal bleeding from unknown causes, damage to my eyes, retinal trauma, consistent with seeing something human eyes shouldn't process. That's what the specialist said. He thought he was making a joke. While I was recovering, 12 hikers reported finding stairs on that ridgeline. Before, we'd get maybe 5 or 6 reports a year. Now 12 in 2 weeks. It was expanding, getting stronger, hungry because I'd gotten away. Martin came to visit on my last day in the hospital. He sat in the chair next to my bed, looking older than his 50 years. "The Forest Service is closing Big Creek Wilderness indefinitely," he said, calling it ecological restoration. "How many?" I asked. My voice was still rough. "How many what?" "How many areas have been closed for this?" He was quiet for a long time. Then, "We've been closing sections of national forests since 1902, Doug, for the same reason. Hundreds of stairs, maybe thousands, all across the country. And nobody talks about it. The ones who talk get dismissed as crazy. You know that." I did know. I already knew. "You broke a rule," Martin continued. "You resisted at sunset. That's the weakest point in the dimensional barrier. Whatever that thing is, it can't reach you now, but it remembers you." He was right about that too. I got transferred to a desk job. Couldn't do field work anymore. Every time I tried to go into the forest, my head would spin. Vertigo so bad I'd fall down. Even looking at stairs, any stairs, even in buildings, made my stomach flip. In 1978, a junior ranger climbed the stairs against protocol. Tommy Hendricks, 23 years old. Good kid. Excited about his first season. He radioed that he'd found the coolest staircase and was going to check it out. We never found him. 23 new staircases appeared in 1 week. I retired in 1980, started writing about what I'd seen. Sent articles to magazines, conspiracy newsletters, anyone who'd listen. Most people laughed it off. Some believed. A few went looking. I hope they didn't find anything. I'm writing this in 1994. I'm 64 years old. I see the stairs everywhere now, in parking garages, office buildings, my own house. I know they're not real, just echoes in my mind. Memories burned so deep they bleed into everything I see. But yesterday I climbed the stairs to my bedroom, counted the steps like I do every day, making sure reality is still real. There were 23 steps. There should be 14. I counted again from the top. 14 steps. I'm afraid I'll miscount one day. FTDs. Raid. I'll take that 23rd step and end up back there. Back in that forest that never ends, with all those people still walking, still searching, still dying so slowly, and the stair, keeper, waiting. Always waiting. So I'm writing this down. A warning. I know it sounds crazy. I know most people won't believe me. But if you're in the woods and you find a staircase that's not attached to anything, not an old foundation, not a ruined building, just stairs going up to nothing, don't touch it. Don't photograph it from directly below. Don't circle it. And for the love of God, don't climb it, not even 1 step. Because if you do, it'll feel completely normal. You'll think you're still in the same forest. You won't realize you've crossed over until you try to leave and can't find the world you left behind. And by then, it'll be watching you, waiting for you to stop moving. Because in that place, the only thing keeping you alive is refusing to become part of the structure. Don't climb the stairs. Please, don't climb the stairs.